Tonight, Harley's Little Black Book is yet another Harley Quinn miniseries, meaning Amanda Conner absolutely has dirt on Dan DiDio. All-Star Section 8 puts out an issue that I genuinely believe might be a work of art, and Prez has its final issue end with End of Part 1. Give me Part 2, you spineless cowards. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 222 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I have tried 3 times now to do the intro to this episode. It's all unscripted. I don't know what I'm going to say. I just kind of ramble my way through it. But every single time I try to pimp Robin War as something big and interesting. Because it is. It has a one-shot this week. It's the introduction to an event that's going to be stretching over like 6 different series. It's kind of a big deal. But at the same time, it doesn't matter at all. It is an absolutely inconsequential event. So, I'm not a good salesman. It's hard for me to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, Robin War is here. Light smattering of applause. Moving on. So what do we have coming out this week? This week we have, in somewhat particular order, Action Comics, All-Star Section 8, Batman Beyond, Cyborg, Gotham Academy, Gotham by Midnight, Green Lantern, Lobo, Midnighter, Prez, Robin War, as mentioned before, and Teen Titans. On top of that, we also have a brand new mini-series beginning, which is Harley's Little Black Book number 1, which is just Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti doing more of DC's fourth pillar. You best know it. And also we have our Batman and Robin Eternal miniseries. And that's kind of the issue I'm having with Robin War, is that maybe, perhaps, there is an in-universe reason as to why Robin War needs to happen right now. It is kind of spinning out of We Are Robin. It's got its own stuff going on. But for me, it feels more like, well, it's the 75th anniversary of Robin, and Batman and Robin Eternal just doesn't feel special enough. So we're getting this one too. Regardless of how you feel with it, I, of course, will be covering all of it. The only thing I want to make clear up front, and this is for absolute completionists, please do not feel the need to read this comic. But Teen Titans number 14 technically takes place before Robin War number 1. However, I want to open this episode with Robin War number 1. If I were to open with Teen Titans, the audience retention on this video, I swear to God, would drop to 0 faster than if I just showed like a C-SPAN announcement program. Like, it would absolutely tank. So we're going to open with Robin War. I'll probably go to Harley after that. And then eventually Teen Titans will happen. But if you care about the order to read them in, Teen Titans technically comes first. Okay? I'm sorry. Moving on, let's get into Robin War. Robin War number 1, written by Tom King, art by Khary Randolph, Alain Mauricet, Jorge Corona, Andre Guinaldo, and Walden Wong. So, backstory, the only thing that you really need to know going into this is the book We Are Robin, in which a bunch of kids have taken up the name of Robin under the guidance of Alfred, though he keeps his distance, and the police and a lot of other people don't really like this because, they're kids. So this issue picks up with kids saying, "I am Robin," and he's just got a gun aimed right at the viewer. We see that he is actually stopping a liquor store robbery, and he's talking like, "Hey, you ever hear that song, the Boy on the Flying Trapeze? I love that song." But then a cop comes in and says, "Hey, gun on the ground, like, put your hands in the air." And the Robin's like, "What do you do?" "I know, I'm on your side. I stopped this guy. He was the problem." But as they're distracted, the robber manages to kick Robin back, and all of a sudden he goes for the cop's gun. He manages to get it. The Robin, dazed, he sits back up. He sees that the robber now has the gun, and he starts unloading his own gun in a panic, which ends up killing not only the robber but also the cop. And we get a mirror of like the crime alley shot, and he's just like, I'm Robin. Oh, I'm Robin. So then we see a whole bunch of news stations. All of them are saying the same thing. These kids are irresponsible. We can't have them running about. City councilwoman, they say it on the next page here, Noctua, who I'm sure is a supervillain, has put forward some new laws for Gotham called the Robin Laws, which effectively make it illegal to have any sort of Robin paraphernalia at all. Additionally, in order to enforce this, she's just sending out SWAT teams to go around arresting kids, doing all this crazy stuff. So, yeah, this is the Robin War. Robin's against the people. We see that it starts off with them like, you know, actually going after kids who are putting themselves in dangerous situations or whatever. But then it also is like a random kid gets tased for having a Robin hoodie. A kid gets arrested for having some Robin posters. And then there's some cops just beating up a kid in a back alley with a nightstick because he has an R on his shirt. So Duke or Noctua, there's so many people here, does not seem fazed by any of this. Then we go with Duke Thomas, who is one of the Robins in the We Are Robins book. He's talking to another Robin named Rico, who has been shipped off to Gotham Academy, and it says specifically, read Gotham Academy number 13 for that. That has not come out as of the release of this issue, so as they're talking, she says something about zombies. Literal zombies are in this issue, and he's like, wow, that's crazy. Anyway, Duke gets stopped by a cop. Now, he's not wearing any Robin paraphernalia, but the cop comes over, obviously looking to pick a fight, and Duke is just like, what's up, officer? And then he's like, what's up with those shoes? And it's just red tennis shoes, nothing special about them. And he's like, oh, these are my, the shoes. They have laces and a sole, and I use them for walking, but not running, because running means that you did something wrong. And that's the story of my shoes. And the cop just pushes him up against the car and says, yeah, well, those shoes are red, and red's the color of Robin. And according to the Robin laws, that means I can arrest you. Rico hears all this on the phone, and she's like, oh God, Duke's been taken by the cops, Jesus. And then a whole bunch of other cops come streaming up to Gotham Academy, basically saying, we have the ability, because of the Robin's laws, to come in and flip all of the bedrooms in Gotham Academy, so we're going to go and do that, and Rico has to hide from them. We then get Duke in the back of the cop car. He's like, I couldn't possibly be a Robin officer. If I were a Robin, I would have a shiv to escape from these handcuffs. And I would know the fire escape lever is underneath the driver's side seat, and it can be jostled loose by kicking the seat hard enough. And I also would know that I'd be able to jump out if we were on the, East Bay River. And I clearly none of that stuff is true, so I can't possibly be Robin. And he's like, haha, well, joke's on you. We are on the East Bay River, so you just kind of admitted it. And he's like, guess I did. And then he just escapes. He jumps out the window, down into the river below. We get an interstitial of a dude who's trying to fish. He came from Smallville, and he just thinks Gotham sucks. He gets a pull on his line. He thinks he hit it big, and it's Duke. And that's it. That's the interstitial. But he calls up a friend and says, hey, we need to meet with everybody. Let's get the gymnasium ready. So then we go to Noctua, who is talking to a shadowy figure organization. Who could it possibly be? And she's basically like, there, I did what you wanted. I've got all the Robin laws. Give me a mask. And they're like, you didn't really come from Gotham, and your parents aren't like wealthy. You're like new money. We don't want to give you a mask. And she's like, well, you're going to give me a mask. Then we go to a bar where the news on the TV is all the Robin stuff going on, and we see a guy's just like, Batman doesn't need kids. What would Batman ever need kids for? And then Jason Todd is there at the bar, and he says, maybe the kids need Batman in order to deal with their anger. And he says, that's stupid. You're stupid. And then Jason punches the guy out. We see he gets on the phone with Tim, and Tim is freaking out. Tim Drake is like, oh, have you seen the Robin's laws or whatever? And he's like, yeah, well, that happens. I mean, it's I guess it is a problem, but I was a Robin. You were just Red Robin. You aren't affected by this law. And he's like, haha, very funny. There's a thing going on at the gym. It's all these kids are meeting up. We need to go deal with that. And he's like, why? Like, let them get together. Let them fight against these laws. It's stupid laws anyway. And Tim's like, you don't get it. We're not the only Robins who would find out about this, and we need to stop the one who would. And Jason's like, oh God, is he already there? He's going to massacre them. So we go to the Robins meeting. We see Duke, Dre, Dax, and Izzy, the remaining Robins from We Are Robin, and they're all talking to the rest of the Robins saying like, okay, here's the deal, everybody. Whoever did it needs to step up. They need to own up to it. They need to get in front of the cameras and like talk to people and give their side of the story, because right now we are getting massacred out there. It is not good for us in the news cycle. And we see the kid in the back. His name is Travis. Travis is like, and Duke's like, hey, look, we're all going to stand up for what we did, what we still do. We are Robin. And from the rafters comes Damian saying, well, that's stupid because I'm Robin. And then he asks if Duke's the leader. Duke's like, nah, we're more of a commune sort of thing. He's like, great, now I'm the leader. All of you disperse and go back home and stop using my intellectual property. And Duke's like, wait a minute, are you the actual Robin? He's like, yes, of course I'm the actual Robin. And like, you guys are all untrained frauds and you're all going to likely kill yourselves. So get out of here. And Duke's like, look, we're Robins too, all right? We're trying to fix this. And he's like, yeah, all right, show me how Robin you are. And he flips Duke over, starts kicking him while he's down, saying like, a Robin may not start a fight, but he knows how to finish one, and clearly you guys aren't ready. And the rest of the Robins try to jump in. Damian's just taking easy work of them until finally it is literally the entire horde of Robins up against Damian, and they start charging in, and Damian's like, psh, whatever. So Jim Gordon in the bat suit has been called in by the councilwoman because she found out about the gymnasium thing as well. And she's like, Jim, go in there, stop those kids. And Jim, as he's getting suited up, is like, I don't agree with this law. I think it's stupid, despite the fact that in the books he's very much against vigilantism, but we'll ignore that. He's like, I think this is stupid, and we shouldn't be doing this. And she's like, okay, well, it's not your job to question the law. You need to enforce it. And he's like, do you have any idea how many times corrupt people have told me that exact same sentence? And she's like, okay, fine. Would you rather I send the other cops who are totally okay with beating these kids within an inch of their lives? And that Batman's like, ugh. So he busts in through the window and he's like, hey, everyone, kids, down on the ground, lying down, hands behind your back. Everyone now. Everyone does except for Damian, who stands up. And he's just like, who the hell are you? And he's like, I'm Batman. And Damian, it's like 5 panels of Damian just looking around going like, you got to be kidding me. So they start fighting against each other, and he's like, no, like, I'm doing your work. I'm trying to get these kids to stop. And Batman's like, you're a kid yourself. What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, but I'm not one of them. And we see Gordon actually does get a few good shots in. But it turns out that Damian was just leading him into a trap because he uses a downed power cable to electrify the Batman suit, taking it offline, and it's down on the ground. And all the other Robins look on like, oh my God, yeah, I don't think we can take this kid on. He's too much. And he's like, who's next? What's up? But then in walks Jason and Tim. And they're like, hey, yeah, how's it going? What's going on? I guess all the other Robins dispersed. Like, they're just not around in this anymore. And Damian tells them, hey, piss off, I'm doing my own thing here. I don't need, neither of you are Robins anymore. You don't have any say in this. And it's like, hey, look, we need to help them. That's what we need to do, okay? That's, you shouldn't be fighting against them at this point. And Damian's like, look, I don't take orders from either of you. And they're like, you're absolutely. But we know someone you do take orders from. Cut to Dick Grayson, who's doing something for Spiral. It doesn't matter what, but for the umpteenth time in the past 2 months, he is saying, hey, I know I said that I'm totally with Spiral and I'm definitely not leaving, but like I gotta leave and go to Gotham because something's happening there. So he leaps out and takes care of that. We then see Duke is talking to Travis, and Travis is like, hey man, just wanted to talk to you for a minute. I'm the one who did it. Should I go out? Should I confess? Should I make myself known? And Duke's like, I would if I were you. Yeah, and you gotta stand up and you gotta own it. We can still make this something, okay? If you're a Robin, you got to carry that. And Travis is like, yeah. Hey, by the way, I met the original Robin once. I was in a house fire, and he swung in, and he picked me up, and he took me out of the fire. And the whole time he was singing that Man in the Flying Trapeze song, which I don't get it, but it's been stuck in my head ever since. And ever since then, I wanted to be a Robin. And we see as he's walking down the street, ready to go do that, a Talon all of a sudden just comes in and stabs him in the back, like knife all the way through his stomach, and he's left dead on the ground. We then cut to the Court of Owls. Oh my God, who would have thought the Court of Owls? Who basically says, all right, everything's going exactly as we planned it. Dick Grayson arrived in the city, which was our plan all along. And now that the gray son of Gotham is here, we will be able to bring back Nightwing. turns out Court of Owls is just everybody besides Dan DiDio. Yeah, I like it because it does feel cohesive. It does feel like, okay, we have been setting this up in We Are Robin. Damian coming back makes sense. We set that up in Robin Son of Batman. Teen Titans, we had a little bit of that as well. Like, it does feel like this is a proper event where all these pieces have led into place and like, okay, good, we're doing this here. We're even doing little tie-ins over to Gotham Academy, things that like you wouldn't expect to be, but makes sense that they are. I think my only criticism here is that it feels so nebulous. It doesn't feel like there is a specific goal here, and that's kind of a carryover from the We Are Robin book itself. I had that same criticism there, where it always felt like the end goal was fighting for what's right is its own reward. And that's fine as a message, I guess, but for an event, it feels like there needs to be a much clearer path here. Are they working to repeal the laws? Maybe, but it seems like the bigger thing is going to be deal with the Court of Owls and the laws will just take care of themselves. So we'll see where we get to. Ultimately, it's a good intro. I think Tom King does a great job writing it, and that death scene for Travis at the end really ups the stakes. So yeah, I'd say this one is easily like an 8. Absolutely. Yeah, I just look forward to seeing where the rest of the tie-ins, because there are parts and there are tie-ins, but they're all different series, so I'm just going to call them all tie-ins. And yeah, we'll see where that all goes. Harley's Little Black Book #1, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Amanda Conner and John Timms. So this is, I believe, an unrelated mini-series in so much as it's just a collection of like one-shots. And it's just Harley meeting up with a superhero or another character from the DCU, I think. So this one is Wonder Woman, but we get to exactly why it happens, where Harley and her gang of Harleys have beaten up some random chemical syndicates or whatever that's sending out dangerous chemicals from a warehouse in their area. And as they're interrogating this one guy to get more information out of him, apparently it's all this stuff is going to be shipped overseas to a guy who needs a special knockout gas to take out Wonder Woman. And Harley hears this and goes, "Oh my God, Wonder Woman, are you serious? Okay, everyone, change of plans. We're going to keep this chemical syndicate going, try to hold off on deliveries or whatever, but we need to keep going long enough until whoever comes to pick up these chemicals can pick them up or send out for them or invoice, whatever." So we go back to Harley's place, and they are undoing all of like the file encryption and whatever on all their stuff. And Eggsy, who's one of the members of their group, is like, yeah, it's some guy behind it named the Barmy Bugger, and he's the main villain for the Legion of London Superheroes, or the London Legion of Superheroes. So at this point, Harley is like, oh, should I show Eggsy my secret room or whatever? And she's talking to her beaver, stuffed beaver thing, and it's just like, I don't know, go ahead, whatever. So she leads Eggsy back into a hidden closet that apparently is just full to the brim of Wonder Woman memorabilia. It's a literal shrine. And just like, oh, how long have you been into Wonder Woman? And Harley's like, ever since I was a child. And we get a flashback to many years ago, which just... this completely destroys the timeline of the New 52, so I have to just assume it's either fake or out of continuity. But we see Harley as like a 10-year-old kid, and she is knocked around by some school bullies who are like, hey, you better be doing our homework from now on or else we're going to beat you up. And they like kick her a little bit, and she's like, yeah, all right, 3 sets of homework tomorrow. So she gets home, she asks to be excused from dinner with the family because she has all this homework to do. And then on TV, she hears the Wonder Woman TV show, and she's like, oh, Wonder Woman, my inspiration, whatever. And she reaches under her bed and pulls out a Wonder Woman mask and a lasso. And we see the next day, as the bullies are waiting for her to arrive, she lowers down the lasso as like a noose around one of their necks, and then yanks down, jumping down from the tree, and she's like, "Ha ha, that'll take you, bullies." And the other two bullies are like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" And Harley just throws a book at one of their faces, and she just starts gushing blood from her nose, and she's like, "And you bother me again, and you'll both be buried alive in the dark ground. It'll be years before they find your corpses." And then cuts to the principal being like, "Yeah, we can't have that happen again. That's no good." And Harley's mom is like, "Oh, my daughter said she was sorry. Isn't that right, Harley?" And Harley's just looking all menacing with a grin, clearly planning on doing it again. So we cut back to now, and Eggsy's like, "Cool, should I warn the London Legion of Superheroes?" And she's like, "No, absolutely not. Maybe one of them could be in on it. Let me come up with a whole bunch of reasons over the course of this page as to why I am the only person who could possibly go there and stop this thing from happening, and therefore being able to meet up with Wonder Woman and then become her sidekick, and we'll all be friends and everything will be great." And Eggsy's like, "Okay, you're clearly going through a thing. The only way to get there, though, is via shipping containers. You'll have to live in there for like 12 days. And she's like, "Psh, I was in Arkham, no big deal." So we cut over to London, which of course is where Diana's base sometime is, and we see that there's some robbery or something going on where she shows up, she slices a car clean in half, and we see two people, including the Barmy Bugger and his friend, lover, sidekick, I don't know. They're watching on from a side saying like, "Ah, good, once we get our shipment and execute the trap, we'll finally get rid of her once and for all." So that's their whole thing. We then cut over to the London Legion of Superheroes, which consists of a whole bunch of people I'm not going to bother to name because I swear to God none of them matter. But we see they're basically a joke. Like, one of them's power is that he drinks a lot. So as they're all hanging out there, they're like, "Hey, we got, trawling on the webs or whatever, we got a thing that a shipping container was coming in for the Barmy Bugger, and so we should go check that out." So at that point, they cross-reference. They know exactly which shipping container it's going to be. We cut over to Harley, who is just rounding off her 12 days, and all of a sudden the container opens up, and she sees these costume people there that she doesn't recognize, and she's like, "Oh, hey, cool. I got the shipment of drugs in here. How, are we going to go kill Wonder Woman?" And of course, the London Legion are like, "Oh, okay, you're a supervillain. We're the London Legion of Superheroes. We're going to take you out now." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't see this coming. Okay, here's the actual truth then." And she says the entire plan of saying like what everything is. And they're like, "Wait a minute, you're Harley Quinn. You're the Joker's girlfriend. We shouldn't trust you." And then she leaps down saying like, no, we're not in a relationship. I'm an anti-hero now. Everything's fine. And I'm going to warn you and prove to you that I'm an anti-hero by saying that there's a missile incoming right now. And the missile lands right next to them. It doesn't explode. Turns out it's just a gas grenade. Knocks out the entire London Legion as Harley climbs back into the shipping container, hiding herself inside of a crate. Barmy Bugger comes up and says, "Ha ha! I took them out, and now there's nothing to stop me from getting to Wonder Woman. My plan's going perfectly." And Harley manages to, like I said, hide inside a crate that they take with them. We see that they bring all the crates and stuff from the shipping container to their chemist, who is making this ultra super powerful knockout gas. Turns out that he didn't need whatever crate Harley was hiding out in, so she's stuck in there for a little bit until finally he leaves. She busts out, grabs a few of them, and says, "Cool. Also, for some reason, I know Wonder Woman's home address." So Wonder Woman gets home. Apparently she's house sitting for a friend. We don't find that out till later. And as the doorbell rings, she looks out, sees that there's a delivery man with a giant bouquet full of flowers. It's obviously just Harley, but she's hiding her identity. And as Wonder Woman goes to get a pen to sign for it, Harley puts on a gas mask, throws in the sleeping gas, knockout gas, to which Wonder Woman's like, "Harley Quinn, it's you?" And so she passes out, and Harley is like, "Hey, don't worry about it. I got everything under control." So we see that she drags Wonder Woman into the bathroom, theoretically to keep her safe, and yet she ends up stripping Wonder Woman out of her costume while she's at it. So she's like, well, may as well. So she puts on Wonder Woman's costume. She doesn't have the bust for it, so it immediately falls down. So she gets a whole bunch of masking tape and just wraps it around herself to keep it up. And then I guess she brought her own wig. So now she's fully dressed as Wonder Woman. We see that the elite forces for the Barmy Bugger come in, and they start firing all the gas grenades off into Wonder Woman's apartment. They think that Wonder Woman was just prepared for them because she's wearing a gas mask and so is not affected. But the guys start firing off shots. Harley's doing her best to deflect them all with the bracelets, but she's like, I don't know how she does this. This is insane. She then ends up picking up a rocket launcher, blowing up the entire apartment regardless. And it's like, all right, well, let's send in the last team. Maybe they can handle her. But as Harley gets pinned down by this last team of SWAT guys, Wonder Woman wakes up in the bathroom, puts on Harley's outfit, and then comes out to fight. So the two of them are fighting side by side. Harley says how much of a beautiful thing it was, how they were perfectly in sync with each other. And when finally all the guys have been taken out, Wonder Woman's like, what the hell was that all? You knocked me out and put me in a bathtub. You're wearing my clothes, and I don't know where my neighbor's cat is. And Harley's like, here it is. It's knocked out from the gas, but everything else is fine. Let me tell you the whole story. And so we cut over to Barmy Bugger, who's got a sniper trained still. And he's like, all right, well, last resort, go ahead and fire the shot. So Sniper fires the shot. Wonder Woman catches it midair as Harley's finishing up her story, and she's like, all right, that's insane. Anyway, I got to go deal with Barmy Bugger real quick. You stay here. So she takes off. We see Bugger goes running. The Sniper tries to fire off a few shots. Harley goes to intercept, ends up crashing into Barmy Bugger, and Wonder Woman catches them both unconscious, and she's like, oh, God, this is pathetic. We cut over to the Legion of London Superheroes or whatever, and they're all chained up because they were taken hostage, and as they talk a lot. And then we get Harley and Wonder Woman busting in to save them. And it's just like, hey, cool, great, thanks for saving us. Who wants to go out for a drink? So they get changed to their civvies. They all go down to the local pub. We see Wonder Woman's like, okay, I think it's great you're trying to become an anti-hero, so be it, but like, start now by doing the right thing. And she like outstretches her hand, and Harley's like, oh, please let me hold on to it a little longer. And turns out it's the lasso of truth, which she runs around the bar, ends up getting herself all tied up in, and she's like, hey, look, let me keep it wrapped around me. You can interrogate me. Ask me anything. And everyone's like, anything? And then we see they ask a whole bunch of very tame questions. And then later on that night, Harley's so drunk, Wonder Woman has to carry her back to the airport where she will ensure that she gets on the first plane home. And then we get the London Legion saying, you hear that? We're all going to go to New York, where the pubs are open till 4 a.m. This will be fun. I don't know if they actually are going to. I hope not. Okay. So for anyone who is watching this without knowing my previous history with the like 3 other Harley Quinn series that are going on, not really a fan. Don't really find it that funny. Not really that amused by it. This issue's fine. It's exactly what it's setting out to be, a crossover story with Wonder Woman. But like, if you just made this an annual, if you just made this 2 issues of the Harley Quinn series, it'd be exactly the same. This is just an excuse to have more of that sweet, sweet 4th pillar going on. Beyond that, I mean, it's fine enough art. John Timms, when he comes in, blends in well with Amanda Conner, or vice versa. I guess I'd say it's a 7. Yeah, I can't. It's not awful. It's not great. I'll give it what it is. 7. Teen Titans number 14, written by Scott Lobdell and Will Pfeifer, art by Scott McDaniel and Noel Rodriguez. So last issue, everything fell apart, everything went bad. A guy named Alpha Centurion showed up and like arrested the Teen Titans, and that's where this issue picks up, where they're being escorted out of the mall, and Alpha Centurion's just floating around saying like, you may have had good intentions, but you must pay the price nowadays. And we see that as they're being escorted out in handcuffs, there's this huge protest of people who are like, screw the Teen Titans, they all suck. And Red Robin says, okay, this must be a consequence, not just of our own actions, but also of the Robin War stuff going on, the Robin laws that have been passed over there. So anti-vigilantism in children is at an all-time high. And we see this reporter comes up saying, Red Robin, people of Metropolis want to know, are you another super team gone bad? And he just gets right up in the camera and says, like, we're not perfect. We mess up. Sometimes we just make it up as we go along. You want to know why we're breaking into prison? Screw you. We're not going to tell you. We don't have to tell you shit. We are the Teen Titans, and we only care about what's right, and we'll be damned if you tell us anything about that. And everyone goes quiet for a moment before they go like, boo! You think you're better than us? We hate the Teen Titans now. And then the reporter confirms, like, yeah, this is all because of the public's view on juvenile vigilantism. And one of the cops body checks Red Robin, saying, like, all right, get in the car, come on, let's go, and leave the heroine to the cops and the prison guards. They're the real heroes. So he gets knocked out by that. We see they're all put into vans. The prison guard, cop, whatever, is on the phone with his wife saying, like, oh yeah, they're showing it on the news. Did they show me body check? Oh yeah, DVR that. I want to see it. And Red Robin starts to come to, and he's like, boy, I goofed it up. I messed all this up here. I tried to hide Khan, and then he got found. I tried to prove him innocent. Turns out he was guilty. I tried to make sure he was free, and then he got imprisoned by Harvest. God damn it. Why? Nothing here has worked out as I wanted it to, but I could really use your super strength to, I don't know, rip off the roof of this car right now. And then all of a sudden, the car is absolutely tanked by the side, and the door is ripped open, and we see it is Riser, aka Doomed, aka another Scott Lobdell creation whose series just ended and they decided they didn't want to stop. So he's here looking for Wonder Girl. And all the guards freak out because he kind of, sort of, a little bit looks like Doomsday. And they're like, oh, Jesus, this is a job for the Justice League. We're out. So as Riser, and I'm just might switch between that or Doomed, despite the fact that's not his official name, he's tearing apart cars looking for Wonder Girl because they crossed over in his book very briefly and he got a little crush there. Tim's getting himself out of handcuffs and just like, all right, well, I'm going to take advantage of this, especially before this truck explodes. And he sees a couple of guards are still in the wreckage. He's like, all right, don't say I never did anything for you. We see that the other trucks are torn open. Wonder Girl, Kid Flash, Beast Boy, Raven, all of them are in that one. And Riser's like, Wonder Girl, found you. And it seems like he's trying to, like, just hug her, like, be kind. But Alpha Centurion comes in, who is also from that book. And he's like, haha, Doomed, we meet again. I'll beat the crap out of you. And so they start fighting, which gives Tim Drake enough time to get over to Kid Flash, free him from the handcuffs, and then Kid Flash goes around freeing everybody else. Alpha Centurion notices and is like, well, now you must fight me. But then Chimera shows up and is like, I can mimic your powers and I will also be able to fight you. And he's like, you're just a poor mockery. You will never be able to take me on. So at that point, he also says something about, like, you are a weak, pathetic woman, to which point Wonder Girl jumps in, knocks him on his ass, and it's like, will you say something about weak? So at that point, he gets up, starts laughing, and turns out he has an entire pantheon, the Pax Galactica, including Straith, Seamus, and Ordling, characters you will grow to love and they're gone. They are immediately beaten back by the Teen Titans, who have all come together. Why am I not even able to remember his name? It's Miguel. What is his superhero name? The Brick Guy. Jesus Christ. I can't even remember it. Regardless, he goes in, he takes out the one of the guys. Kid Flash goes in, takes out another one, and then Beast Boy does a whole thing of, like, charging as a peregrine falcon and then turning into a hippo at the last moment. So as they're all getting their asses handed to them, Alpha Centurion's just standing there like, what are you doing? Guys, there are a bunch of kids. Jesus Christ, get it on with. So then we see Power Girl, who last issue managed to grow to an exorbitant size to, like, squish Manchester Black. She does the same here and attacks Alpha Centurion and ends up knocking him out. And we cut to later as the news reporters are there saying, like, oh, the Teen Titans have escaped from custody. They're now on the run or whatever. They've taken out the Alpha Centurion and blah, blah, blah. So we see that everyone, and this is, I swear to God, this is like the worst possible cut I've ever seen in my life. They are all hanging out in the room, including Red Robin. He is on the side of the panel, but he is absolutely there. And he says, Red Robin said we should be safe here for a few days. Now that we're outlaws, we need to figure out our next plan. And then the very next thing says, by the way, where's our fearless leader? He was right there. Literally. So regardless, they say, yeah, he had somewhere else to be. Turns out Robin War is going on. This is a prelude intro to Robin War without actually being. Turns out he went to Gotham he sees all these kids that are dressed as Robin being arrested by cops, and he's like, this is exactly what I made the Teen Titans to be able to stop. The teens should be able to fight for their right for the future. And we see that as he's up on a rooftop watching down, someone else is behind saying like, oh, well, Tim, that's why we're in Gotham, to find out what's going on here and how all of this has happened so quickly. And then we see who is the voice. It's Red Hood. So they've teamed up. Next issue is a Robin War tie-in. Okay. Scott, my boy, my man, you don't have to keep on bringing all of your OCs into every goddamn series you do. You can just let them die. They did. If Doom didn't sell, what made you think I wanted to see it in another book? And I know this isn't the last time he's shown up. I know that Doom will return over and over again. He shows up like 3 years into Rebirth because Scott Lobdell just can't get over himself. On top of that, just like the blatant art mistake here of like, where is Red Robin as he's standing right next to Beast Boy? It's sloppy. It's a sloppy book. It's been horrible for the past 2 issues, and now the fact that they're having to tie into Robin more, I think that's the only thing that might be a little bit okay here is like, if they're tying into Robin War, Bunker, that was his name. Sorry, I was like 4 minutes late. But yeah, if they're tying into Robin more, perhaps there's a bit of editorial oversight that's going to reel them back and force them to actually, do something for the story. But I hesitate to say that because God knows what they're actually going to end up doing here. So yeah, trash book, been a trash book. I'm going to say a 4. I'm going to say a 3.5 because on my little sheet here I have 4 labeled as passable. It's not. It's a 3.5. Action Comics number 47, written by Greg Pak and Aaron Kuder, art by Jurgens Jeanty. So last issue we had Superman going up against Frankenstein, both of them controlled / mildly influenced at the very least by Wrath's shadow stuff. And this issue picks up with Wrath just talking to Lee Lambert being like, seriously, when Superman's like this, can you really tell any difference between him and Frankenstein? Which one is the monster and which one is not? And Lee's like, shut up. Let go of me. This isn't me. And he's like, no, you got to listen. I infected you with my shadows and you kept your soul, which means you're something special. And you're more than Frankenstein or my shadow warriors. You can be something different. And Superman's like, don't listen to her. Wrath's stupid. You're nothing special. I mean, not that. That's not what I mean. You know what I mean. So Wrath basically says like, no, I'm going to drop these shadow bomb things over Houston and we're going to make a whole bunch of new heroes. The shadows will be used to empower the heroes. And they were like, but we saw what it did in Metropolis. It made people crazy. And she's like, omelets and eggs and all that stuff. Don't worry about it. So Lee ends up punching Wrath where Lee then gets cast off aside and Wrath is like, all right, fine, whatever. New World Order, here we go. So the planes start getting ready to take off. Superman's busy with the shadow creatures and Frankenstein. Lee goes to try to take care of the jets, but it ain't going so hot because she gets zapped by a laser. So Wrath eventually turns over to Superman. And Frankenstein's just tossed around at this point. He's done. And Wrath is like, Superman, I know that the shadow is in your blood. You just want to rage, which means that I'm already in your head. I know everything about you. And Superman's like, oh yeah, you want all my power just to control for yourself. That's what this is. You're just a typical villain. And Wrath's like, all right, origin time. Here we go. Turns out when she was young, like 25 years ago, her mom bent over backwards to try to make safe places for her and always tried to keep her safe when Metropolis wasn't exactly the best place to be. We see that she managed to make her way through school. She aced it. She went in law school. She landed a great job in the DA's office. And then literally on her first day, she was the day that Brainiac came and collected the city and put it in a bottle. And over 6,000 people died, including her mother. And she never quite got over that. She blame Superman to some extent for letting that happen. But then time passed and we eventually got to the Super Doom stuff. And we were like, oh yeah, and look at you. You became Doomsday Superman. You went around you killing mists and you took on Brainiac again, but you disappeared afterwards and like the city was screwed. It was all your fault all the time. And I started seeing Kryptonians the same way. Superboy, Supergirl, they were all just threats waiting to happen. And it was at that point when I was at my lowest that Vandal Savage approached me with a box that was full of this shadow stuff. And I took his gift and I turned my anger into power. And that's where I'm at now. And Superman's like, okay, I get it. I hear your backstory. I understand. And then he just makes a portal out of shadow stuff and goes, whoop, and she's like, wait a minute, hold on, what? So Superman is like, all right, I get it now. I understand what her stuff is. I get her backstory. I'm going to use this gift, this power, now that I know that it's a gift, quote unquote, and I'm going to stop the bombs from landing. So we see the fighter jets that have already taken off. Apparently it's going to be like 77 minutes, like an hour plus to get there. It's by the end of this issue. I don't know why they took so long. But we see Clark manages to shadow thing his way in and pull the ejection seat on one of them. So one of the jets is gone. He starts going to the other and he can feel the talons of wrath poking in the shadows, clawing at him. And as he gets to the other plane, Wrath pulls back, being like, oh, okay, fine. You heard my backstory and you know enough to use my powers against me, but you're still not in control of them. I'm the one who's in control because you don't even know yourself. And then we get this whole section where Wrath is just throwing Clark out of the shadows for just like a couple seconds in front of people from his life. So we start with like Jimmy Olsen, we go over to Steel and Lana and all the kids that he saved and all this other. So Lee, who's apparently still fighting Frankenstein. And Rat's basically like, see, look, they see you engulfed in shadow. They see your rage, your anger, how you're not in control. You gave so much. Your anger is not going to hurt anybody ever again. And he's like, oh, of course. Oh, I get it now. And we see he gets engulfed by the shadow, but Rat's like, wait a minute, what's going on? And all of a sudden we see now he's like pulling on the shadows himself. And so he goes out, he goes over to Frankenstein. Rat's like, go ahead, keep fighting him. Give in to your rage. It's literally all I want. And he's like, I know. And so we see he rope-a-dopes Frankenstein, pushes him to a shadow portal. As the other shadows come and start trying to attack him, he just calmly makes a portal on the ground and sets all the shadow creatures to fall into it. And he's like, I keep on fighting the shadow, but fighting is what she wants. So I'm just going to give in. I'm just going to let all of the shadow in. And so then Lee comes up and Lee's like, what are you doing? And he's just like, I need you to trust me. Take my hand. Give me the black stuff. And Brash is like, no, don't trust him. You saw what he was like. He was angry. He's not to be trusted. And Lee's like, shut up. Of course I trust Superman. So as soon as Lee touches his little shadow pool, all of a sudden it drains off of him. Anything that was touching anybody else, all of like the kids and whatever outside the place, they're all drained to their shadows. And everyone's back to good, except for Superman, who has taken on all of this shadow. And Lee's like, oh my God, are you cool? He's like, I'm fine, bye. And he disappears into a shadow portal. We see the plane approaches Houston. It drops the shadow bomb. Everyone looks up and is like, oh my God, it's going to hit us. We're all going to die. But Superman blasts up there and he's like, do you see it? This is how I beat you, Wrath. I let you in. I took in your darkness. I absorbed it all. And now I have all this power back again. And he just takes the darkness bomb and absorbs it inside of himself. It doesn't do anything to the city. So as Wrath is looking on upwards, Vandal Savage comes out of the little side corner just being like, well, I think we're done here. Yeah, and Rat's like, no, you don't get it. There's crazy stuff going on up here, man. He's bigger than we imagined. And Vandal's like, all right, well, let's just do this. So he opens back up the box. The shadow is drained from Wrath, which simultaneously drains it from Superman as well. And so while he's flying around with shadow powers, it's sucked out of him, and he's left tumbling back down to Earth in Houston. And as everyone's saved, One guy says, "Oh, thank God," and Vandal Savage closes the box and goes, "No, thank Vandal Savage." So our final thing is we see 2 hours, 6 miles away, Lee finally catches up with Clark, who's just waking up outside of the field. And Lee's like, "Oh my God, are you good?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just me again. All the shadow stuff is gone, but like, I'm kind of disappointed because I had all my powers back for a moment, or at least some approximation of them. I could have been super again." And Lee's like, "Well, if anyone could have handled it, it would have been you, but I gotta like my Superman the way you are." And they walk off back to the car. The end. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a fine enough little bit there. I think, I don't know, it's kind of weird because part, like, this kept on flipping back and forth, if I'm remembering the story correctly, because it's a little hard because there's also so much going on with the Hoarder Root stuff that's like kind of tied into this that is also about Superman and like his anger and his rage. But if I'm remembering correctly, like, part of it was him saying like, "Oh, I just want to give into the rage and do whatever." But like, it's weird because like that's kind of what he did here, but it was more so of, I guess, accepting the darkness rather than giving into rage. I don't know. I think that the emotional point lands. I'm still processing exactly what it means, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. This feels like a more of a feeling on my part than it is the writer itself, but it's just not as spelled out as clearly as what I feel it should be. But no, I mean, all the other stuff is done well. I like the fact they're setting Vandal Savage up. There is going to be a annual involving him at the end of the month, I believe, that is set in Superman rather than action, but clearly it's all building up to confrontations between Vandal and them. So I'm down with it. I think it's solidly written. I think this one is going to be I'm going to say a 7.5. It's almost at the 8 for me, but it barely beneath that, just a tiny little bit. But it's definitely worth still checking out. I'd say the arc as a whole, a little bit less so, but it's still good. It's still a solid arc regardless. Prez number 6, written by Mark Russell, art by Ben Caldwell, the finale of the series that absolutely should not have ended. All the last issue stuff happened. We have Tina, the droid, and all, whatever. The big thing of this issue is that the cat flu epidemic, the one that killed her father in the beginning of the series, is now reaching an all-time high. Mind you, this book was made in 2015, so they explicitly say, like, "Oh, it's one of the worst epidemics in American history. 82,000 Americans have died over the past few weeks." Like, yeah, there's a lot to it. But we see throughout the news how people are, like, defending from robberies by just holding up a cat. There's a bunch of protests going on outside because she's not moving with the vaccine fast enough. And then the Church of Wormology is filed an injunction to stop the vaccine altogether because they believe viruses should dominate the earth. So we see Beth is at her desk. She's waiting for some of the senators to come in. Or sorry, not the senators, the pharmaceutical people to come in. And Boss Smiley says, "All right, here you go. Here's our deal. Pharmaduke will devote a quarter of R&D to the cat flu vaccine. Smiley and Senor Corn will give 2% of their net profits to finding a cure. And in response, all we ask for is this tiny one, itty bitty little thing." And turns out it is the right and ability to patent any genome for any living creature that they may discover over the course of this, including literally everybody's cats. And he's just like, "Well, it's kind of, cost of doing business. It's what we got to do here." And Boss Smiley comes in saying, like, "Look, do you want to get serious about the cat flu?" And she's like, "Yeah, my dad died of it." And he's like, "Oh, awesome. Guess we can name Bill after him." And Beth gets so pissed off, she's just like, "Get out." We do see she gets a invitation, though, to come to Delaware, which we'll get back to. So we go to a LGBTQ meeting, support group that is tacked on the letter R in order to help with Tina, the War Beast robot. And Tina's just like, oh, the things I did, I was dissociating the entire time I was War Beast. I don't know if I can live with the things I've done. And they're just like, hey, it's not about who you are. It's becoming who you want to be. And she's like, thanks, guys. I need that. So she goes back to her church that took her in. And she's like, hey, guys, the meeting went well. Can I get you both to lie on the ground for a moment? And they're like, what? And then all of a sudden the wall blows out behind them. A bunch of special forces people come in trying to attack War Beast. And War Beast is like, oh, can't you leave me alone? I'm not War Beast anymore. And Tina goes over, picks up the wig, puts it back on, and says to one of the soldiers, call whoever sent you. I have a proposition. So we see the protests are still continuing on. And the senators have come together and they're like, look, the epidemic's out of control. You're not pushing through the vaccine stuff. So we're going to take it out of your hands. And both the left and the right have managed to come together because they have the votes not only to push through the bill, but to override any veto that Beth can possibly have. And Beth's just like, are you serious? Like, you guys are willing to join forces to do this? So he calls him out, and that causes Beth enough strife that she takes up the offer to go to Delaware, where she meets up with, I think it's Fred Wayne, the reclusive trillionaire, and he invites her up to his laboratories, and it's like, yeah, we're doing crazy stuff here. We got 1,200 inventions a year coming out of here. Right now we're working on cat to email thought reading, where cat's thoughts are read, it lights on a keyboard with a laser, and then when the cat presses the keys, it makes the cat press the keys into an email. And it turns out one of the emails is a dog walks into a bar and explodes. The end. So at that point, Beth is like, we've got a crazy ass epidemic up there. Half the planet's underwater. We got all this stuff going on. You're working on cat emails. And he's like, well, I got something really big, but I would need your help to make it work. And she's like, you got something to save the world and you haven't started doing it yet? Why not? And he's like, well, no one else has ever believed in me. And we see a big door, just top secret in the back. And then didn't believe is not the right word. Who's ever taken it seriously? So we cut over to a news program, which is interviewing Tina. And turns out Tina has come to an agreement with the government, army, military, whatever you want to call it, that they would allow Tina to wipe her memories of her origin, of anything classified or anything like that, in order to be let free, in order to be Tina. And she's like, yeah, I've got all my memories deleted. And then they bring up very prescient stuff on there's a lot of controversy over how good artificial intelligence is. And Tina makes the point of saying artificial intelligence isn't the problem, because there have always been computers since ancient times that are good at performing tasks that humans are not. What you need to be concerned of are artificial emotions, because as soon as a computer can say, screw it, that's when you're in trouble. And the host is like, so should we be worried? And Tina's like, yes, absolutely. So we then cut over to the protests have gotten worse. A bunch of Secret Servicemen have been killed under Beth's watch because of all the protests. So the senators have come together. They've passed the bill. And as the bill has been passed, Beth is reluctantly brought to a party that is celebrating the signing of the bill. And a bunch of pharmaceutical reps and stuff are there. And Beth's just going around carrying drinks, just like, yeah, suck it up. We then see the church is in disarray ever since the attack. So Tina's looking up a job that she could possibly join at. We see preschool security guard, firearms provided, a sentry operator for the Chinese army, or join the Secret Service. And we'll get to that in a minute. We then see that Beth calls in the pharmaceutical reps and the senators again. And she's like, okay, now that you guys had your party, you had your fun, let's sit down and talk about this vaccine bill. And they're like, we passed it with a veto-proof majority. You don't have any leverage over us now. There's nothing to negotiate. And Beth's like, really? So Fred Wayne enters the room, passes an envelope off to one of the senators, and he's like, well, while you guys were all happy celebrating, I was going around collecting your glasses and getting your DNAs off the cup. So Fred Wayne here has patented all of your DNA sequences as the bill allows him to do. Therefore, he owns your genome. And then Fred says, yep, and I'm going to be suing you all for $10 million every day you violate my patents. And one of the senators like, this is crazy. And he's like, shut up, I literally own you. So they come to the conclusion of you either have to pay or stop existing, or you can repeal the bill and then you won't be Mr. Wayne's property anymore. And the other senator stands up being like, all right, cute games and all, but we need your friend to back off. And she's like, oh, I know you do. So the question is, why do I need you? And we see the senators leave and all that stuff, but they're still stuck with an epidemic. And that's where the science advisor comes in saying, like, look, there is another way we can handle this. We go to Congress has repealed the bill. It's been taken off, and they have created a cat zone out in the Southwest in Arizona. And Beth's like, I promise you, all your cats will be taken care of. We're going to take them all while the flu passes by. It's like a giant litter box out there. No big deal. However, critics have immediately said that she's making cat death panels, and the Church of Wormology has declared war on her because they believe that she's declared war on them. So the protests are even worse. People are chanting death to Beth. She manages to sneak in through the protests using like a mask of her own face. And as she gets inside, it's just like, yeah, well, our entire Secret Service has quit because of these protests. It's not going well. And she's like, I'm doing my best here. Why does no one see that? And it's like, well, presidents can either choose between what makes them popular now and hated 10 years later, or hated now and loved 10 years later. You chose the loved later thing, and people aren't used to that. So turns out that there is one person interviewing for Secret Service. It's Tina, and she's sitting there reading a Bible, and Beth's like, do you really believe all that? And she's like, I don't know, but it makes me feel real. So they go over qualifications, which is, of course, she's virtually indestructible and can see through walls. And then we see there's a White House tour going on, and they're about to go see the Clinton hot tub when two members of the Church of Wormology have snuck in. They are knowingly hosts of the cat flu. And as Beth is going out to get some water while Tina's filling out a questionnaire, the Wormology people come and try to attack Beth, try to infect her with the cat flu, to which Tina comes in and immediately just like doesn't kill them, but takes them out. And Beth's like, well, hey, you got the job, by the way. To which Tina's like, have you heard about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? So we see that the protests have dissipated. The cat flu is in sharp decline, and the president's approval rating has exceeded 30 million for the first time. So on Facebook, that's Facebook likes. So we go to New Mexico. We see the cat zone where a guy is really hesitant to part with his cat. Says, yeah, I had to put down a cat once, and I was heartbroken. I wouldn't have done anything. Like, if there was any chance of the cat surviving at all, and there's no way I can lose another cat. And Beth's like, okay, well, you can volunteer down here, and you can stay with the cat, and you can help with all the other cats as well. And he takes her up on it, and as they're all going off into the cat zone, science advisor's like, yep, the epidemic should die out in 2 months, but we still need a vaccine, and you got a lot of other stuff on your plate. And she's like, yeah, I've been playing defensively the whole time. I think now it's time to finally go on the offensive. And we see that top secret door at Fred Wayne's mansion has finally been opened up, and it says, end of part 1 to be continued. And they never goddamn did. I'm still bitter. All right, I love this issue. I loved all the issues. I think I was collating a couple issues in my head to make like the perfect issue. Aspects from each of them. A lot of the Tina stuff, I think I coalesced all into one, but I will still say this one is easily like a 9.5. I'm going to just say it. I think that the moment where Beth comes into her own, where we're not just like dicking around anymore of her jumping around trying to like put out fires, and she goes on the offensive for that 1 second and manages to take down the senator. Top tier. I love it. And it's such a clever little thing where it's like, yes, we're patenting genomes, and then we patented your genomes, and now you're screwed. I do want to call out, in early Rebirth era, there was an election night special, which was mostly Catwoman, but it had a backup story for Prez, and that is also a great continuation, same writers, where they use the Second Amendment to get birth control pills to anyone who wants them by disguising the dispensers as guns, and it technically then falls under Second Amendment. It's so clever. I love the issue. Definitely check that out if you haven't seen it. But no, it's the series has been great. I love the political satire on it. I would have loved to have seen part 2, but things got a bit complicated real quick, so I can understand why they didn't, but I'm still going to be bitter. But 9.5, absolutely. If you haven't checked out Prez, why not? Get back there, check it out. It's totally worth it. Gotham by Midnight, number 11, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Juan Ferreyra. So last issue, a lot of big things happened, but the biggest one is that Jim Corrigan and Drake apparently died and like just disappeared into a flash of light, and then a giant ass monster thing came up out of the swamps of Gotham and is absolutely going to kill everybody. So this issue picks up with the monster coming through Gotham and absolutely killing everybody. But first, we deal with the cops who are looking over the crime scene of Drake and Corrigan, and as they're looking, they're like, look, there's no trace of them. They must be dead, whatever. By the way, there is this narrative device that's going on this whole time that's basically saying, here's a character, here's something like somewhat related to what we're looking at, and here is this horrible encounter with death they had. Here's something that happened. So, for instance, there are main two people here at the crime scene. We see one of them saw their first body, a man who was frozen to death in like a slop house, and then the sergeant, his grandfather, was shot and killed by a thief in his shop. And we see all this stuff happened in Gotham. It's always stuff that happened. So as we have a helicopter looking for the remains of Corrigan and Drake, they see the giant monster towering over the skyline, cracks in the asphalt of Gotham as this ancient text comes up, and it's all green light and whatnot, and we see Ichondrid shows up and starts reviving the dead of Gotham, but not just the dead of Gotham, but we'll get there. So then we go to Dr. Tar. He's down on the street. We see that this street apparently had like thousands of murders over its entire 400-year stretch or whatever. And as the cracks in the asphalt hit him, all of a sudden his eyes start glowing with a green light. We'll get there. We see that the graveyards and morgues and everything else start popping up, and they give little bios for a bunch of the dead people. And the one thing that all of these things have in common, all these bios for the dead people, is that they died not of natural causes. They died not even of like natural accidents. It was someone screwing up or someone basically killing them, more or less. And so all these people are being brought back by Ichondrid, because Ichondrid's full name is Ichondrid the Betrayed. So everyone who felt betrayed, whose death was not warranted, they're coming back as zombies, and they're immediately swarming all of Gotham. We see the cops who were taking care of Precinct 13. They're like, oh God, what do we do? And he's like, oh, I don't know. You just arrested the only people who might have had a goddamn chance of dealing with this. And then Spencer comes out with a shotgun. She starts being the ultimate badass, and she is like, all right, come on, let's go. We see helicopters are calling in for dispatch saying like, yeah, no, zombies, crazy. Maggie Sawyer's telling everybody, all right, zones of control, do what you can. Somebody call the governor. And then in comes Jim Gordon in his bat suit. And he's like, oh, zombies, cool. Precinct 13, call them in. They'll know what to do. And Maggie's like, ooh, I got some bad news for you, bub. And basically reveals like, yeah, no, they got arrested. And Gordon's like, what did your people do to them? And like Sawyer's trying to like say, Batman, I don't like, it's not entirely right. But the moment that he calls her out, she's just like, okay, Gordon, here's the thing. Corrigan probably killed 2 cops. We have that like absolutely on the record. And he's like, and why was he even talking to the cops? You were supposed to leave them alone. So yeah, all this stuff is happening here. We see that it's all over Gotham. And as the zombies are being blown up by Gordon's bat missiles, a crack opens up, and out comes not only Corrigan and Drake, but also the Spectre. And we cut over to across town. A bunch of these zombies and spirits start coming after some gangbangers who are on the corner. One of them recognizes the gangbanger as one of their brothers, like an actual brother, is now a zombie. And as it's about to reach out to him, we see Dr. Tar now has laser powers out from his mouth. He just opens his mouth and a boom comes out and takes out the zombie. Meanwhile, Ichondrid is just kaijuing around. He's crushing everything. Drake and Corrigan get back to the back line. And we see one of the sergeant's grandfathers, the one who got shot by the thief or whatever. He's like, Grandpa, is that you? Spectre shows up and starts wiping out the zombies, anything in like an immediate range. And Drake's like, okay, everything's going to be fine. Spectre's here. It's all good. But we get the recap that Spectre was not a God's holy whatever. It was something that was doing the bidding of Corrigan, and Corrigan was brought back from the dead after he was murdered. He's one of the betrayed. So as this is happening, we see that the Spectre walks over to Echondrid, smiles, and then they both start speaking in tongues together. So the Spectre's gone bad. We see Sawyer and Gordon are in the middle of a zombie fight. Gordon throws Sawyer like out of the middle of the pit, so he's the one getting swarmed, and she's telling like all the cops, hold back, we gotta like get a clear shot, do not shoot Batman. We then go back over to Tar, who all the guys are like, hey man, you saved us, you stopped us from that zombie, do it again, as we look at the giant legs of Echondrid are coming down right on top of them. So, you know, no good luck there. We go back over to Drake, who's trying to shake Corrigan out of it, saying like, look, this may have been, you know, the Spectre may have been you this whole time, whatever, but it's responding to your subconscious. You thought you were a vessel, but you're not. If this thing is you, then you can control it. You need to take the upper hand here. Like, if this is your rage or your guilt, whatever, own it. And we see the Spectre is literally standing right over them. It's about to lay the fist down and kill them both, when all of a sudden, in a different speech text bubble, the word stop comes in. And on the final page, we get, I believe, a holy spirit of something of Sister Justine, who comes in and says, stop in heaven's name. So I don't know. A zombie apocalypse, sure. Yeah, why not? Zombie apocalypse. I mean, I like it. I think it's a solid issue, and obviously we're building up to the end of the series. It does end at 12, so I really do like the way that it's all panning out here. It feels big, it feels epic. I love the look of Echondrid. I think my only criticism, if I have to really pull one, is pulling in Gordon as Batman here. Like, I would have much rather just had Gordon as Gordon. I know that's not feasible. That's not what's going on in continuity right now. But if his only purpose is to show up and say, you dumb bastards, you were just supposed to leave Precinct 13 to do their own thing. Why didn't you do that? I think I would have liked that. But having him also, like, you know, firing off missiles or whatever, it felt a bit too much there. But it's so minor in the grand scheme of things. Also, I'm curious what Tar's thing is. Why is he super powered? I don't have an answer on that one. So I'm going to say this one is, it's between an 8 and an 8.5. I think I'm going to go with the 8, with the hope that the next issue can sell me enough to get to the 8.5. So we'll see if we get there, but I really like this one. Green Lantern number 47, written by Robert Venditti, art by Martin Coccolo and Billy Tam. So, kind of the beginning of a new arc here, at least not going on with the old stuff. We open up with a couple of Sinestro Corps members racing through space with a green trail behind them, and they're like, oh god, oh geez, we gotta get to Sinestro, this is messed up. And then all of a sudden they're engulfed in green light, and they start getting choked out by it. Notably, not with the Gauntlet of Krona. They specifically show it's not that. And they also say Sinestro has followers. Well, they can die like him. And they beg for mercy, as seemingly Hal Jordan's the one causing it. So then we go to the orbit above Earth, where we see actual Hal Jordan is there with, oh, I'm always going to forget their names, Trapper and Virgo. And they're looking down, and Trapper's like, Earth looks so boring. You don't even have, like, spacecraft coming in and out all the time. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, okay, well, you're not coming down to my planet, so it doesn't matter. I'm going down to looking on my brother and my family. I'm keeping a low profile, so you guys are going to have to stay up here. Virgo, you're in charge while I'm gone. And they say, hey, look, we can come down. We can help you out if you get into like a tiff or whatever. And this is like, nah, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I got the gauntlet and all that. But Trapper points out, hey, you gave me like a Suicide Squad thing where if you die, I end up dying too. It's not fair if you get yourself killed without me like being around at all. And he's like, fair enough. So he detaches the wrist thing from his own wrist. Trapper immediately starts to go for his gun, and Hal's like, I'm still on the kill switch button, don't you dare. And he puts it on Virgo instead, and it's like, Virgo, you know how this works, press the button if you accept, and blow his brains out. And Trapper's like, okay, well, whatever, go down there and die on Earth, see if we care. So he goes down onto Earth. We see that he gets into his brother's home. Nobody is home at the moment, and then all of a sudden the alarm system starts going off, and he's like, crap. So 5 minutes later, a bunch of cops show up, guns drawn, and they're like, oh, hands in the air. And he's like, okay, you don't want me to put my other hand in the air because you're going to get more freaked out if I do that, and you might end up shooting somebody. But then his brother Jim shows up, and he's like, Hal, what the hell? What's going on with your hair? And, the cops say, hey, all right, that's going to be a fine for a false charge or whatever. And it's like, right, sorry, family, whatever. And Hal's like, sorry, I didn't know you had an alarm system put in. How's it going? And they, they hug, they greet each other. And Hal's like, yeah, crazy stuff's been going on in space. Was Simon Baz coming around? Because that's the last thing I left you with, is Simon Baz would keep an eye on you. And it's like, well, yeah, he did, and he was doing a great job of it, but then months ago, he just stopped showing up, and that's when I got the alarm system. It's like, you got an alarm system to stop alien threats? It was $100. And he's like, $500, thank you very much. So he's like, look, something happened to the Green Lanterns. I don't know what. They all just disappeared. I think it's connected to their rings, but I don't have a ring anymore. I have a gauntlet. So I guess that's why I wasn't taken. And Jim's just like, why do you have a gauntlet? And he's like, I was trying to make a fresh start, take all the blame for the Corps so that they could, rejuvenate their image after the bad things that happened. And Jim's like, okay, how's that working out for you? He's like, not well, Jim, not well. So at that point, he's like, look, I'll stick around. I'm making sure you're safe. Everything's just, let me crash on the couch. And Jim's like, all right, on one condition. And he forces Hal to cut his hair back to, as we expect Hal Jordan to look. And Hal's like, oh, what, you become a barber? And he's like, oh, I got a family of 4. It cuts down on costs. So we see there is now a carnival on a pier in Coast City, and some guy is dropping off parts for the Ferris wheel there. The Ferris wheel operator's like, I don't know nothing about no parts, but fine, whatever, leave it here, I'll take care of it. And as he's signing for the thing, he talks to the delivery driver like, hey, that's a strange accent you got. Where are you from? And he says, Medora. And the operator's like, never heard of it. So we see Hal, who's still in full costume, mind you. He's got a better haircut, but he's in full costume. And Jim are walking down the pier, and Jim's like, I would criticize you for what you're wearing, but it's California. You're not the weirdest dressed one here. So we see Sue and their kids come up and greet their Uncle Hal. They're excited to see him. He gave the son a laser toy specifically, the girl a little stuffed bear. And they all just kind of walk around this carnival. Apparently it was recently built, and they've been having fun here very frequently over the summer. As the kids run off to go hop onto the Ferris wheel, Jim's just like, man, you can be a superhero all you want, but I'll take that any day of the week. And he's like, I understand. So the kids are up on the Ferris wheel, everyone's having fun, when all of a sudden that box containing the parts starts giving off a signal, and it gets louder and more constant, and wouldn't you know it, it's a bomb. It explodes. A lot of the pier is in wreckage. People are concussed. They're down on the ground or whatever. But we see that the wheel structurally is starting to fail. So Hal immediately jumps into action. He gets up, he uses his Chrono Gauntlet, and he starts keeping the wheel afloat. A couple people start coming off, their stuff is tearing off, so he conjures up extra hands to catch it all. He's like, oh, just hang on, I've got to keep this wheel from collapsing first and foremost. But it looks like one of the carriages that came off the wheel was the one holding his niece and nephew. Niece seems fine, but the nephew has some sort of a concussion. He's unconscious. He's not responding, and the mom's crying out for help, and Hal's just like, oh God, someone help me. Cut out to deep space. The Sinestro Corps members have been eviscerated, guts flying everywhere, and we see another Green Lantern. Hal Jordan is saying that the universe is unguarded. It lives in the darkness beyond the twilight, and parallax will bring the dawn. For anybody who's happened to forget over the past 7 months, one of the survivors of Convergence was 0 Hour Parallax. He's in the universe, And here he is. They did something with him. I guess they were like, okay, we're wrapping up the New 52. We got Superman and Lois over there. Supergirl and Flash are probably dead during the crisis, so don't worry about them. What do we do with Parallax? And they're like, all right, we're just going to give him a Green Lantern book. Don't worry about it. No, I mean, this is a fine enough issue. I like the setup. I'm glad we got Hal back to his normal hair. Nothing to say that there wasn't some sort of creative design for the Renegade look. I'm down with it for an arc, but I'm glad we got it back to, okay, we didn't need to change everything all at once. Also, I don't know. It feels to me, and I could be wrong here, maybe it is going to be something that is going to be bigger, but it feels like they're kind of just purposefully taking Trapper and Virgo completely off the board. Like, maybe we'll see them again in like 3 issues time, but it feels like, no, we really have nothing for them to do here, and we're just going to leave it as it is. So I think there's a better way to write them off than just saying they're left on the ship while he's down on Earth, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll have something else. But for this, I'm going to say this is I'll say 7.5. It's good. It's got good moments to it. I like the family dynamic stuff, so good beginning of an arc at the very least. Lobo number 13, written by Cullen, Bunn, and Frank Barbiere, art by Robson, Rocha, and Ethan Van Sciver. The final issue of Lobo, and yet not. I'll get to it. So last issue we had Lobo accidentally got dosed with a highly hallucinogenic drug. It caused him to imagine seeing like Zarnians and people from his past and other stuff like that. And in his haze, he went about and he's planning on killing every other top shot bounty hunter out on the market. And we see he's doing a damn good job. Planet to planet, death after death. So many people are dead. We see that one guy, I forget what they named him, but like 2 issues ago, the purple-skinned alien is going around following, and he's like, oh, Lobo, what are you doing? We go to a planet called Kovath, where this guy who looks a lot like the Emperor of Zarnia is running through the crowd, and he's like, oh, get out of my way, get out of my way. And Lobo's just like drooling. He's completely lost his mind. He's like, I'm not going to stop till they're dead. They leave me for dead, but now they're mine. And he keeps on attacking, swinging at this guy until finally it blurs, it fades out for a second, and we see that either the person that he was chasing or getting involved now is Hal Jordan, who's just on this planet, and he's like, oh, you picked the wrong guy to mess with. So Hal comes in, and he's like, look, this isn't my fight. I'm going to end it. He uses his glove, ends up using a construct to knock Lobo clear across the market, and Lobo's just like immediately back like, oh, that was a good hit, but I won't let them get away. I won't. And as he looks up, he sees the 3 human characters from like way early in this run, and they're standing over top, and he's like, you need to get a hold of yourself, Lobo, you're losing it. And he's like, I'm not gonna listen to my ghosts, get out of my head. And it's like, you recognize that you're seeing us and that we're ghosts. There's something wrong with you. You have to listen to us. And they're pissed off that he's not listening, despite the fact that they're not even there. So Lobo takes off again. Now that he's fully healed back up, he's like, just gotta focus on my job. I'm the Lobo and no one escapes me. So he goes back after Hal. Hal tries clearing the area out because he knows it's going to be a big fight. Lobo takes a jab, ends up wounding him a little bit on the arm, but he's like, all right, now I'm mad. So we see from Lobo's perspective that it's various different people, like the Emperor of Zarnia and whatever her name is, the green-skinned lady from like a few issues ago. And Hal just keeps on knocking Lobo on his ass. And he's just like, oh, I can't let them take me. I have to finish the job. I'm all that's left. I'm the Zarnian. Why don't you leave me alone? And Hal goes back. He's like, I recently saw Lobo over in the Green Lantern Annual, but like I never thought that he... And then immediately Hal just gets tackled. Lobo's going for the kill. He's just like, oh, you can't come back. You're already dead. And Hal's like, okay, crazy. Time to leave. So he immediately uses Green Lantern powers, blasts up into the atmosphere, holding Lobo the whole time as he's like trying to bite into Hal's shoulder. And he's like, all right, we're clear of all the cities. You got a good healing factor. Let's how it deals with atmospheric re-entering. And he just drops him back down to Earth. And we see Lobo his skin is literally burning up. He is reduced nothing. And all of Lobo's internal thoughts are just, it hurts so much. Why did they stop? I tried to save them. I can see my home, Zarnia. And as he lands back down onto the ground, he is a burned up, horrific looking skeleton that all of the Zarnians and Sinestro and all of them are standing over top, and they're like, oh, you're such a disappointment. You shouldn't come home. You don't deserve to come home. Maybe it's time you stop fighting. And Lobo gets up in skeleton form and says, I'll never stop. I'm a Lobo. And as he's crawling himself out like Anakin in episode 3 sort of style, we see this shadowy figure come out and extend a hand, and he's like, yes, please take me back, take me home. So Hal comes back down. He's like, okay, I've done some asking around, and it says that you've been dosed by some sort of drug. And oh, wait, where'd he go? Oh, well, I'm sure I'll see him again eventually. And then he's done from this book. We then cut over to that purple alien who's like, hey, the Citadel from the Vega system, * C Omega Men, has been keeping an eye on you. Nearly 30% of registered bounty hunters have been killed by you. I've been trying to figure out what's been going on, and I realized you were dosed by that hallucinogenic drug, but it's extra bad for you as a Zarnian because A, your regenerative properties don't let your system flush it out properly, and B, it was made from the rocks of a bunch of dead planets, including Zarnia itself. You were huffing your own dead planet, man. You ain't supposed to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you to the Citadel. They're going to get the toxins flushed out of your system. You're going to be okay. And like the Citadel sees you as valuable. They're going to help you. They're not willing to let you slip through the cracks. So he goes back to get like a first aid kit or whatever. And he's like, now you're starting to like fully regen. I'm going to get you a sedative so you don't go crazy on the flight. And when you get to the Citadel, they'll help you out, and they're interested in preserving what's left of Zarnia. And we see Lobo's got a knife, and he's standing up. He's like, you think you can control me? I'm no one's weapon. I am Zarnia now. And he stabs the guy through the chest. And it just says, the end. And then it says, but look for Lobo in February's Batman Superman number 29. Oh boy, I don't even know what number we're at now. 27. So this thing wants an extra 2 months to have Lobo come back again. All right. So here's my thought. And I don't have anything to back this up, but here's my thought. I think the game plan here is that they wanted to take Lobo, the original main man Lobo, kill him off, replace him with this new version that's more 90s, or not 90s, the mid-2000s like edge sort of stuff rather than the loud gun-toting 90s version. However, when that wasn't responding well, I think they wanted to try to slowly convert this Lobo into that Lobo. So they basically say, he's going crazy, and we slowly start to get there. Because in the end of this issue, he's shirtless, he's got a little bit of like beard shadow showing up here, and it just seems like they're going for that vibe. They're going for the fact that like, oh, he's the kind of crazy Lobo. We can blend it back into the old one, and no one will notice. Didn't end up working out that way, but I think that was the goal. I have nothing to back that up, however, so correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, this particular issue, honestly, I would have much preferred it if Hal Jordan was not in here. If it were just a thing of him going through, killing a bunch of bounty hunters, he comes across one that's maybe a bit too strong for him, or even this purple guy here who's fighting against him to try to save him, and then we get the same ending. It all would have been fine. Having Hal here was more distracting than anything else. It made it feel like it was his book more than Lobo's book. So overall, I'm going to say 6.5. It does have its redeeming factors. A lot of the art does look good, but I cannot for the life of me think that this is a proper way to end the story of Lobo. It feels much too much like they know they have other plans with him, and this is just a stopgap. So yeah, 6.5. Batman Beyond number 7, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Stephen Thompson. So last issue, and I guess the entire series beforehand, Brother Eye took over Gotham. We were in the future, and it was all about undoing that. We had succeeded. Brother Eye is gone. However, the Batman Beyond suit is damaged beyond repair. So we open up this issue in the Batcave with Tim saying, well, Batman is dead. And he's talking to Barbara Gordon, who's also there. And it turns out they're talking about the suit. We got into the Bat computer and all the schematics are there, but Tim is saying it's not working. Whatever is written in these schematics is not correct. It's not bringing the suit back. There's nothing they can do. And Barbara's like, well, maybe it's over. Maybe you're just not meant to be Batman. And he's like, no. I have all the information. I need to figure out how to put it in the right order. And we see Barbara's like, look, it took Bruce years to get that right. It was his magnum opus. It was his best creation yet. You can't just do that again, especially if you didn't write it down. And he's like, but what if he did? What if you said there was a merger between Wayne Tech and the Powers Company? What if he didn't trust the Powers Corporation to have that information, and so he rewrote it? He hid it in code or whatever. And we see it's the simplest possible code where you just take the first word and then skip a word, and then the next word and skip 2 words, and the next word and skip 3 words. And he's cracked it. He's fixed the suit. Everything's fine. And Barbara's like, how in the hell did you ever think that way? It's like, not about how I thought. It's about thinking about how he thought. So we go out to somewhere in downtown Gotham, and there's the kid Matt, Terry's younger brother, who goes into a tailoring shop, and he's like, hey, I want you to tell me where this came from. And he pulls out a cyborg arm, and the tailor's like, you got the wrong shop. I don't know what you're talking about, kid. And he's just like, oh, well, people tell me here that you might know where certain things come from. And he's like, well, that is iTech and it's illegal. And he's like, look, I don't care about any of that. I just need to know where it comes from. It's super important to me. And he's like, all right, well, suppose I did have the ability to analyze this. What do I get out of it? And it's like, you can keep the arm. I don't care. I just need to know where it came from. And he's like, all right, whatever. So he goes behind the thing. He scans it for something, and he says, oh, we've got traces of the Metropolis foundry in there. So that's where it's got to be from, Metropolis. And then as soon as Matt's like trying to get more info, door gets kicked in, and this guy named Rewire walks in wearing a full like supervillain getup, and he's got electrical powers, and he's like, hey, you sold me a janky plasma battery. I demand a refund. And Rewire just walks up, pushes Matt out of the way, tells him to beat it, and he starts threatening the guy, telling him he wants his money back. And he's like, I don't have it. I can't possibly, it's too much. I can't do it. And Matt watches this happen, and we see he picks up the cyborg arm from off the table, and you're thinking, oh, he's going to be the hero. Nope. He just walks out, and we hear Rewire mess this guy up. So we see I'm always forgetting her name. Nora. Nora is trying to find Matt. He's late getting home, and he's like busting the door being like, sorry, I had my phone off and I was playing games with my friend. Anyway, school tomorrow, good night. So he just runs in there, and we see he pulls up his equivalent of an iPad and searches for Metropolis. So we cut on top of a Gotham City skyscraper. They're running tests. Barbara's in the cave. She's running point, and we see Tim stretches out and he gets his wings out. All the tests are coming successful, and it's like, all right, let's go ahead and fly. So he jumps off the thing. We see he's building up speed. He goes to engage the thrusters, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. Whatever it is, it starts going off, and Barbara's like, oh, your cyberlink came loose. You got to put it back on. So he retracts the suit a little bit, adjusts his earpiece, and then all of a sudden everything kicks back on again. All throughout this, they're talking, they're saying like, hey, Tim, do you have anywhere to go? What's going on? And he's like, oh, well, I'll find a place to live. No, I want to get out of the cave, and I definitely don't want to live in the mansion, so I'll find somewhere I can chill out at. And Barbara's like, I have an empty room. It's probably for the best that, like, I need someone to hang out with as well. You can come live with me. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. Please don't, don't make this weird. And she's like, no, it's going to be better for both of us. Just go ahead and do it. So all throughout this, we see guys getting held up by the Joker's gang, and Tim comes in. He doesn't know anything about the Batman Beyond mythology, so Barbara has to say, yeah, they're not really in it for the crime, like not to get anything. They just like causing chaos. They live in a society. So we see that they're robbing this guy, and turns out that this guy had a briefcase full of priceless diamonds. And Tim's like, we're just getting this city rebuilt after Brother Eye. Who the hell cares about diamonds? And it seems Barbara shares the thing. She's like, yeah, I'm the commissioner, and like, screw the Jokers, but at the same time, screw this guy who's like clearly smuggling diamonds. We see one of the Jokers gang tries to go off. Tim tests out his batarang and his explosive discs by knocking her off her bike and then blowing it up. And he's just like, yep, all right, Batman's back. So he drops the Jokers off at the police. And we cut to the next morning where Nora comes to wake up Matt for school. He's left a note saying, hey, I left for school early, bye, and we don't get anything else of it. Tim goes to Barbara's apartment, and he's like, yeah, hey, you can stay here. By the way, I've got a cat, it's whatever. And he's just like, nah, this is weird. I don't like this. And they basically point out, like, Tim is trying to relate, saying, like, oh, well, you know, were you never married or anything like that? And she's like, Tim, you disappeared. Like 20 years passed forever, decades passed. We all thought you were dead. I know it's just like it was yesterday for you, but like, we aren't the same people that you knew back then. You don't try to relate like that. And he's like, I really should not be here right now. And she's like, no, I'm sorry. I'll adjust. It'll be fine. Just let's make this work. And he's like, okay, but like, I do have to go and like talk to Matt because his brother died, and I kind of took his brother's costume and whole identity, so I want to be cool with the kid. And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely, do whatever you can to help him. And then as he's flying, he's talking to Nora, and Nora's like, I don't know where he is. He left for school early, but he disappeared. I don't know what's going on. And we see like a truck that is exiting the walls of Gotham City, and a figure jumping off of him. And Nora's like, he always used to trust me with things, but now he's not anymore. I'm terrified by what he might be up to. And we see Matt stumbling over some cliffside or whatever to see the ruins and wreckage of what once was Earth. Okay, cool. No, it's 100% just setup. It's 100% just like, all right, we finished all the Futures End stuff we had to wrap up. It's done. We're not going back to it. Now we're going to move on to this other bit. And yeah, no, it works for me. I like, we're putting Matt into a central role. We're making him an interesting character, going to develop him a bit. We took out the Alfred AI, which neutral. I don't hate it, but I don't like think that it's really that big of a deal either. But putting Barbara into the driver's seat instead allows us to develop her character. It just seems like it's a good way. It's a good way to get this cast of characters more fleshed out, more well-known, anything more than what the Futures End universe would have been. So yeah, overall, I'd say this one is easily I'm going to say a 7.5. I think I'm more keen on it than I was previous issues, but it does still have a little bit to prove to me that this series is something that deserves to exist rather than just being like, we want more Batman and Batman Beyond, why not? Cyborg number 5, written by David F. Walker, art by Ivan Reyes, Felipe Watanabe, and Daniel HDR. So last issue, it was a big old fight scene between all the Techno-Sapiens and whatever, and then they summoned a giant beasts from the ground. Literally does not matter. Literally was just for the cliffhanger there. Cyborg's down on the ground. The beast seems to be eating his leg. And then as it bites off his leg, all of a sudden, honest to God, I've completely forgotten her name, but the other woman from the alternate universe comes in and slashes it. And somehow they blame her for chopping off the leg, despite the fact that it was clearly gone in the previous shot. But the woman's just like, oh, whatever, we got to go. So as they're being surrounded by Techno-Sapiens, she's able to teleport all of them out. And it's like, look, the battle is over, but we might still win the war. As we see left on the battlefield are the Metal Men. Not even Will Magnus is there, just the Metal Men are left. And we, like, as the Techno-Sapiens are like, oh, the Chosen One will return, and then we will show him the way. And Metal Men are like, all right, well, let's bail. We got to get out of here. And they one of them questions why they're leaving the fight. And it's like, oh, well, you know, we don't have a plan. We're going to get ourselves killed if we do that. We got to be ready to fight another day. But as they flee, a couple of humans are like, oh, robots, attack them. Are you guys evil? And they're just like, no, not at all. We're great. And they can't affect us, so we're good. and they question what happened to Vic, and turns out he disappeared. His network is gone. So we see where the gang teleported to, and it's Star Labs on the other Earth. And we see it's Sarah. That was her name. That was right. Alternate Sarah's like, yeah, this is my home. Welcome. You can check around here. We see that one woman who was in the wheelchair on the alternate Earth. Again, don't know if she has a name. She comes in and she's like, hey, don't worry, they can't attack you here. We're flooding the air with this gibberish. It's cyber gammatronic particles. Sure. But regardless, Cyborg's like, so do you know how to fight these things? And she's like, no, not at all. We know how to make it so they don't like ruin everything we have, but we are fighting a losing battle on that one. And Cyborg's like, all right, well, time to get started then. But first, let's go do this thing. So he goes down to an examination room. He tells them, get all the scanners on me, every single thing. I want to know exactly what's happening. And then he calms down and focuses on regenerating his leg. And it fully regenerates as a human leg, but he's able to concentrate and make it look like a cyborg leg again. And he's like, cool, you guys do all that scanning? You guys know what's up? And they're like, yeah, how long have you been able to do that? And he's like, ever since the beginning of this book. I think it was a new operating system caused by the trauma of being stabbed by Sarah here. And the wheelchair one is like, no. This isn't that. This is like an extension of your already existing operating system. I think that this is the reason why the Techno-Sapiens think that you're the chosen one, because their programming is supposed to be able to do something similar, but they got corrupted. So you'd be the one to get them back on track there. And at that point, it's like, yeah, all right. Let's just go more into the detail. Why did the Techno-Sapiens say that his song was attracting them, or that he was singing? And it turns out he gives off some vibrations that they're able to track or whatever. And he's like, all right, well, I didn't want to be called a tuning fork, but whatever. We then cut over to the Techno-Sapiens on the other Earth, who are just staring at holograms of Cyborg, saying like, yes, he is the one, and we must go get him. Let's keep trashing Earth in the meantime. We go back to the other Earth, where Silas is looking at that Earth's version of himself, which was the one who became Cyborg and doomed everybody. And he's reading through like the histories and the logs and all that. And Cyborg's like, hey, Dad, I'm downloading that right now. You don't need to read it all. And he's like, I want to. And also, like, I am also an expert on cybernetics and stuff. So you don't need to pretend like you're the only one who knows this stuff. He's like, right. But like, I'm faster at it. So you don't need to worry about it. And then it's just pages of text boxes, like so much going on here. But what they basically say is the background to the Techno-Sapiens is that they were corrupted by whatever cyber parasite, and they were originally had powers, or were supposed to have powers like Cyborg that would have allowed them to regenerate and be better than themselves and constantly grow. But the parasite made everything worse, and now they're horrible abominations or whatever. So that's more or less where we're at on that one. We see back on regular Earth, a couple civilians are outrunning the Techno-Sapiens, Jesus Christ. And as it's trying to be like a poignant moment where he's telling the kid, like, it's going to be okay, just keep your eyes closed. And he keeps on repeating it over and over and over again. But then the metal men end up coming in and saving the day. Yeah, it happens. We then see Cyborg is standing in front of the alternate version of his father that was also Cyborg. Sarah comes in saying, hey, I need to talk to you. Look, I don't know how to say this. And she just goes quiet, and Cyborg's like, are you okay? And she puts her head against her chest and is like, no, I'm not. I can hear your heartbeat. And she gives a little smile, and Cyborg's like, you good, Sarah? And she's like, I don't know. Take care of yourself. And she walks off, and Vic's like, all right. So we cut to later, and we see like Cyborg's like, yep, I got a plan. I know everything that's going to be going on here. All of my data and calculations says that this plan has a 50-50 chance of working. And they're like, oh, Jesus Christ, are you serious? Alternate Sarah comes up and is just like, well, in that case, we're coming with you. You can't go it alone. And we see Cyborg says in the... to paraphrase the late, great Rowdy Piper, I plan to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Just to make a They Live reference. So all of a sudden the teleportation thing goes again, and they show back up in the alternate, or in the original Earth, and now fully reformed, ready to fight. So what does that mean? Yeah, I'll be honest. I think that this issue was good to have from a viewpoint of, let's talk about what the Technosapiens want. Let's talk about why exactly cyborgs are chosen one. Let's just lay it all out on the ground. I never say no to one of these issues that they go a couple issues enticing the mystery of it, and then we just have something that spells it out a little bit. We get some answers. The answers issue is fine for me. What bothered me here is that there are at least 4 full pages of this that are essentially dedicated to the thing of the Technosapiens are like Cyborg but evil. And like, you don't need that many pages to explain that. You don't need, like, they just say it 4 different ways of like, oh, maybe they came from the same nanoparticles as you, but they were corrupted by the thing. And then it's like, oh, well, they say you're the chosen one because they're the same as you before they were corrupted by the thing. It's like, yeah, okay, we get it. We understand. They're same, but different. I understand it. You don't have to spend 4 pages on that. And then on top of that, there's like 3 or 4 pages here that are absolutely filler. The thing of the metal men and like saving the kid, it's a good character beat, but it does not need to be 2 pages. Their thing where he's quoting They Live, and then later on in that same page, he says, oh yeah, well, I'm rubber, you're glue. Like, it's padding. That's all it really is. It's a lot of padding. I think this issue, more so than any other one, has felt so unnecessary because they started and ended the issue exactly in the same place, in the middle of the Technosapien fight. The only difference is they got a rejuvenation. So I'm gonna say, I gotta say 6. Like, I don't think it's like technically bad in terms of art or like how the writing is actually written, the scripting, but the overarching story and the pacing is just god awful. So I'm gonna have to say 6. Midnighter number 7, written by Steve Orlando, art by Aiko and Hugo Petrus. So last issue, turns out that the guy that Midnighter was dating is actually a supervillain named Prometheus, and this was all a long con. So we open up, and I say open up, 95% of this issue is Prometheus just monologuing and saying like, here's my history, here's why I do this, here's why I win. So we open up with the history, which is his mom and dad were criminals and they brought him on like robbery or something like that. They were getting chased down by the cops, and then they did a last stand and a hail of bullets with the cops saying like, oh yeah, you'll make us immortal. And as the parents were killed, he absolutely went insane saying like, oh hey, the cops are like, oh, we're here to help you, but he's like, no, my parents loved me and it's the justice that killed them. There's no justice in that, so therefore I must destroy justice at its roots. And we see that apparently he was taken care of by crime lords in the area because his parents were famous in that sort of crime stuff. He went about being the best he could be in terms of crime. He studied under people, influencers, tastemakers, stuff like that. And then he went to Shambhala and got the cosmic key. Got meaning stole. So he has that and he's ready to address the problem of justice. So we pick back up now and we see that the Prometheus is standing over top of Midnighter and he's like, yep, I have modified myself with my own enhancements, the things that I got from the God Garden. I built myself up to kill superheroes, and I've learned so many fighting styles. I've installed them inside myself from all these different people, Batman, Lady Shiva, even you, Midnighter, and I have special cells that will make it so that all of your enhancements that can predict movements are useless. You're just an average person in terms of that now. So you can't possibly win. And Midnighter's like, well, you're wrong there. And he ends up kicking Prometheus up like into the next level. Prometheus has a, I'm going to say gun that fires electricity or lightning, but I really am not sure the specifics of it. But either way, it's just kind of a drawn out fight scene. And Prometheus is like, okay, you got my history, but now here's like the reason I'm doing this. Midnighter, you're such a goddamn hypocrite. You say, oh yeah, look, the crime of killing another person, and you punish that with what? Killing the people who killed them? Like, you're just a hypocrite. You're just furthering that. And he literally says, crime is a societal construct. And I'm like, all right, edgelord. But that's basically how he's coming down here. Just like, you do it and it's called heroism. My parents do it and it's called a criminal act. Like, there's no difference here. It's all just like whatever side is the one in control. Screw that. So at that point, he's also saying like, yeah, look, and I knew exactly how to play you. I dangled multiplex in front of you, the Akakyavek, all those things. I got you comfortable with your enhancements, and now you can't even manage a patronizing speech. Like, I've completely broken you here. And Midnighter's like, shut up. And he just keeps on attacking him. And he's like, oh, it's only where it begins. I'm going to tear out your technology and use it for myself. I'm Prometheus, the god of forethought. And Midnighter keeps on doing the fight, and he keeps on like stabbing Prometheus with different tools, and like hits him with a harpoon. And Prometheus is like, I have total control of my body. I can flood my body with endorphins. I won't feel pain until I want to feel pain. And so the fighting continues on, and it's just absolutely brutal. And Prometheus even points out, like, hey, this apartment that I made, that we grew here, I had it made specifically from your origin file. I grew it from your memories, and I wanted to give it to you as a glimpse of what I'm going to take when I kill you for justice. So the fight continues on. They're completely destroying the house at this point. And Midnighter's like, oh, you didn't learn when to talk and when to punch someone in the face. And this is where he's like, I've already won. You can beat me up as much as you want, but here's the deal. If you kill me, you're still a hypocrite. The type of justice you made, like, it's only going to prove me right. That's exactly what it is. And Midnighter's like, okay, whatever, I'm still going to do it. And he's like, oh, well, here's the other thing. Your origin file, the whole reason you're doing this, because it was stolen from the God Garden, I downloaded it into my brain and destroyed the original. So if you kill me, you lose yourself. You lose your entire backstory. If you don't kill me, I go off and do this again, and you're a hypocrite. You betray your ideals. So what's it gonna be? And without hesitation, Midnighter karate chops him in the temples from both sides simultaneously. And we see all of the downloaded files or whatever all fracturing out of Prometheus's head. He may as well just be dead at this point. So he falls down to the ground. Midnighter goes, I know exactly who I am. And I'm going to walk away. I'm not even going to look back because you don't even deserve it. And we see as he's walking away, Prometheus manages to stutter out the words cosmic key, which allows him to teleport out theoretically to fight another day. And Midnighter does end up looking back, and he's like, pushover, I wouldn't have run. So he ends up going back into the wreckage, and we see that there is a single photo of him, it seems, from a young age. But we cut over to Oakland a few days later, and he's talking to one of the people in his network called Jason. And Jason's like, hey, man, how's it going? You know, you doing all right? And he's like, I had a thing with Prometheus. I'm having real trouble trusting people right now, and like I just keep on letting this happen where like they get close or whatever. And Jason points out, like, yeah, people suck. Like, in every relationship, a lot of people play games, and like, yeah, that's something you got to sometimes deal with. It just so happens that in your relationships, the games are like superpowered punching each other, and that's a problem. But you know, it's still the same sort of stuff. And Midnighter's like, okay, but I need to trust my own judgment. How can I trust someone if I can't do that? And he's like, you trust people all the time. Like, you can't expect yourself to be perfect. None of us are perfect. I know that you're not perfect, and I've known that all along, and I'm still here sticking with you. Like, you have to be willing to accept people like that. So we cut to Marina, girl from earlier on in this series. Midnighter contacts her. She's gardening out in the prison yard or whatever. And he basically calls, just checking in, just like, hey, how are you doing? And she's like, what? Who are you? You never ask how are you doing? And he's just like, oh, I mean, you know, I'm working on things. I'm just working it through. And she's like, all right, well, I assume you've been killed and replaced with someone. I need to go avenge you now, don't I? And Midnighter's like, no, I'm just doing some work on myself, but I'll keep that in mind. And then we cut back to Opal City, where Apollo lands inside the apartment, and sitting inside is a wrapped up package for him. He unwraps it, and it's that photo of Midnighter from when he was young. We then cut over to Boston at a Spiral black site. Dead shot on the word of Amanda Waller is breaking into this place. Immediately, he's met with a bunch of Spiral guards, just shoots them all dead. And as he breaks his way deeper into a vault, we see that he gets to the Perdition pistol, which I believe, is Prometheus's gun. I really don't know, though, but Deadshot's got a hand on it for Amanda Waller now. And then somewhere else in Boston, we see we're back at Al's bar, and Midnighter's talking to Tony, and is basically just like, hey, yeah, I don't know. I just, I don't know any reason that I should keep going on. Why waste my time after this? And Al's like, well, I left you this place in my will. And he's like, all right, fair enough. Good enough deal. So he offers up a bottle to Midnighter, just like, hey, yeah, you're my brother. I don't need a secret origin to know that. And we see Jason sends Midnighter a message saying that he's thinking of going out. He's offering up to Midnighter, if you want a friend or whatever. And Midnighter's like, well, I didn't know it was possible. I don't know what that means for me. But I do know one thing, something that'll never change. I'm never done fighting. And that's the arc. I mean, we do have more issues. This thing does go up to 12, so we'll see what more we get out of that. But I think this arc is not as good as its parts. The sum of its parts is less than the parts, if that makes sense. I think that the entire arc as a whole feels a little bit messy. It doesn't feel like it really has a great grasp on what I was expecting out of the whole thing of like, oh, someone robbed the God Garden. We have to find out who that is, da-da-da. And when it came to the reveal of Prometheus, I was expecting it to be this thing of, okay, you robbed the God Garden in order to do XYZ. But what it really came down to was a morality play. This idea that he was just trying to expose how Midnighter is fundamentally like a bad example of a hero. Fine, okay, but it just doesn't feel like it's paying off what I've been reading for 6 issues now. So, cool reveal last issue that it was all part of the plan. I just didn't like the plan. I'm going to say this one is probably just flat 7 for me. This issue didn't really pay anything off as well as I would have hoped, but historically this series has been decent, so I'm looking forward to seeing if it gets back up to any of those heights in the next 5 issues before, obviously, it ends. Gotham Academy number 12, written by Becky Cloonan and Brendan Fletcher, art by Carl Kerschel. So last issue, we got Kyle, the brother of Maps, went missing during a thing while they were looking for Calamity. They got a key to Arkham Asylum, and now we're dealing with that. So we go back to the academy. We see that Maps is sobbing as the cops are trying to talk to her, and they're like, please, we just need you to finish your statement. And she's like, oh, I'm too upset. Oh, and she runs off. Olive goes and gives chase, and as soon as they turn the corner, Maps is there just tying her shoes, and she's like, yep, that was all fake tears. I bought us some time. Let's go figure out what's really going on here, because if they try to get me out of the academy and try to send me home, we're never going to get it. And I was like, fantastic, but I think I know a way to buy us even more time. And they go and find her roommate, who of course is an aspect of Clayface that is like separate and able to do her own thing. And we see that as Maps is being loaded up into the car later that day, it's not actually Maps, it's the roommate. And Maps pops out of the bushes just being like, all right, let's do this. So as they're walking around for a little bit, it's like, okay, we got to get to Arkham. Can we get there via the tunnels? And Maps says, no need, we got a ride. And in comes Colton and Pommeline. I'm going to say in just like a Lamborghini or something, like some sort of sports car, but it's painted black, so the first thing you think is Batmobile. Either way, they get in. They're like, do you have your driver's license? He's like, that doesn't prove whether or not I'm a good driver. So Pommeline has apparently been brushing up on Calamity. She's been reading files, doing whatever, and she says, Calamity is its own entity. If you come across Calamity, there's no reason to assume that any part of your mother is in there. And I was like, I mean, we can't know that for sure. And Pommeline's like, dude, Calamity killed your dad. Like, absolutely, it is just a monster. Your mom's not in there. And Olive's just like, My mom said my dad died in a car accident. And Palmiott's like, oh, well, you're welcome. I told you the truth then. You should be happy about that. So they drive into Arkham Asylum, and Olive basically just lashes out at Palm, just like, do you enjoy hurting me? Like, what is with you? Why do you do this? And Palmiott's like, look, maybe I just don't want my only friends getting burnt alive or whatever. In fact, you know what? You should stay behind because you might be a liability here. You're clearly too involved. And Maps comes up just being like, hey, look, you are a little bit of a liability. Like, that's not a bad thing. That's not whatever. But like, we have to, I need to get my brother. Okay, that's how this plays out. So like, maybe you should stay back and just honk the horn if there's trouble. Okay. And she just does. She stays back. We see Palm is talking to them inside, and she's like, hey, is Olive actually really mad at me? Like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said all that, but they're like, hey, whatever, we got to focus on Kyle. So we see them going through, and they're like, how are we supposed to find him in this huge asylum? It's crumbling down around us. And Maps just goes, hey, Kyle. And Kyle's like, oh, Maps, is that you? I'm down here. And so he's down inside a hole. We then cut over to Olive, who sees a light on in one of the towers of Arkham. And then she sees a figure inside and a voice saying, Olive, come to me. And she's like, well, can't turn that down. So she starts climbing her way in. She hears Kyle's yells, and she's like, okay, Maps will find him. This might be my only chance to come after Calamity. So at that point, she gets through a door, tries ramming her way through it, and she's nothing doing. She can't get through it. And then she's like, Mom, if that's you in there, they told me that you were dead. And then all of a sudden the door starts to open up. There's a bright orange glow inside. But we cut back over to Kyle, who is somehow in a locked room where the entirety of the floor has given out, except for one tiny little bit he's standing on that is actively crumbling away. And they're looking at the door. They're like, okay, well, we have a key and here's a door, but we don't see a keyhole. And then they brush off some dirt or whatever from a tile near it, and they find the Arkham symbol with a keyhole in it. So they put it in. As Kyle's starting to lose his footing, he's starting to fall down. Maps ties a rope around herself, goes to dive after, and we see Colton also jumps down and grabs hold of him. So they're all good to go. They got Kyle back. But Kyle makes the point of saying, like, when they say, oh, Calamity took you, he's like, no, that's just it. It wasn't Calamity. It was. And then, he starts falling down the hole. Meanwhile, they are like, okay, where's Olive? She's probably getting herself into trouble. So we go back into the room that Olive busted into, and there's nothing in there except for a desk with a wig and Calamity's clothing in there. And Olive's like, I don't understand what's happening. She goes over to it, and then a voice from the side says, she's still alive in you, Olive. Out comes Hugo Strange, of course, their psychiatrist or whatever at Gotham Academy. And he's like, hey, all right, your mother was a patient of mine once. I know everything about her. I've studied Calamity. It goes back generations in your family. That power is now inside of you. Your mother refused me access to Calamity. She always wanted you to have a normal life, and with her, she always wanted that. And I've been wearing her costume to try to get more into her mindset, to learn more about it, but not doing. So now I need you to take up her costume and become one with Calamity to really get her going. And we see Olive's just like, okay, if you know more about her than anyone, how did she die? Were you there? Did you cause it? What did you do? And she's like, what? No, it wasn't me. It was Calamity. And he's like, no, you will tell me. And like flames start spewing up behind Olive. And Strange is like, oh my God, it's Calamity. It's you. You didn't finish telling me about the tunnels. What did you hide in the tunnels? And all we see is screaming noise. All the other members of the troop come up. They find Olive standing in a burnt out room, flames still actively going. And Kyle and Maps are like, oh, Professor Strange, he was the one who kidnapped me. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? And Olive just turns around being like, Calamity, she saved me. And all of a sudden, the entire asylum starts grumbling. It's all going to come down now. So they run out of the building as fast as they can. In the crevice, the cracks or whatever, spread so wide it actually swallows the car in with it. And it's like, all right, well, guess we're not driving back. And our final thing is back at the school sometime afterwards. Leaves are starting to fall. The summer has officially ended. We see Professor McPherson is there with her dog. The dog starts growling at Olive, and Olive just no sells it, just zero expression on her face. And McPherson's like, hey, the Mizuguchis came for Kyle, like they wanted to talk to you. And she's like, nah, I don't really want to talk to them. And he's like, okay, well, you take as much time as you want. If you want to talk, I'm here. You can talk to me. And Olive's narration is like, Professor McPherson seems to think that like I went through some sort of horrible thing that I need a shoulder to cry on, but like I feel better now than ever before. I feel like I'm finally whole again. So, oh no, Olive has evil stuff in her. She's got calamity. So yeah, this series does continue on. I think we get another trade, maybe even 2 out of it. So I'm looking forward to that. In terms of this particular issue, it's weird because I think it does a good job of paying off the calamity stuff from like a logical standpoint of like, yes, Strange was the one who did it. He was dressing up at her and was like trying to bait Olive, trying to get her into this position here. I think that makes sense, but it also feels very empty because it basically takes away the idea of her mother being alive in any aspect and it just being the calamity thing that's passed through her, which in itself has some cool story implications, but it just feels a bit more hollow than the mystery of is the mother still around. I guess I kind of don't want them to really close that box, because once you do, like, there's nothing more that can be done with it. So overall, very good. I'd say it gets an 8, but it is still, it's more so for the series as a whole than this specific issue, because every issue does just roll right into the next one. All-Stars Section 8, number 6, written by Garth Ennis, art by John McCree. So last issue, I actually had like really good things to say about the issue because it got really weird and metaphorical and like other stuff going on there. This issue, we pick up right where we left off, where Superman walked in the door and was asking for Six-Pack to join him. And we essentially get the Angel of Death storyline, the storyline of let's reflect, let's take a moment. Where are you right now, Six-Pack? So Superman brings Six-Pack to the Fortress of Solitude via teleporter. It doesn't look anything like the Fortress of Solitude on the inside. It's absolutely insane. The only thing is that it's in the Arctic. And he's like, yeah, no, it's got relics from all over the universe here. It's including animals and plants or whatever. Take a look. Here's all this stuff here. And like offhandedly, he mentions the bottle city of Kandor, to which Six-Pack is like, did you say bottle? And he's like, no, not that. We then see this weird fluffy creature called Humpo comes up. All it says is bunga, bunga, bunga. It farts a lot, and Superman's like, oh, don't worry, it's harmless, no big problem. So Humpo goes by, and Superman just like guides Six-Pack over to a window and says like, whenever I need to think or whatever, it's the view here, the Arctic desolation. I find it inspiring. So what's troubling you, Six-Pack? And Six-Pack is like, I don't know if I can even say it. Like, there's maybe nothing that can be done about it, but like, I saw a cold and lonely place, and I saw someone who looked just like, and then he like drifts off a little bit, and he's like, see, I'm not a hero, I'm just a loser, and I'm thinking I might not even be real. So we cut back to the bar, and we go to the grappler who's taking a piss, and then like mid him just saying, I'm the grappler, he just stops, he looks up, he shoots his grappling hook up at the like pipes in the ceiling, and he says, you know what? Screw this. We'll get back to him. We go back to the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman's like, you don't think you're real? Like, okay, please elaborate. Go on. Like, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, I think I'm just a drunken bum passed out in an alley. Like, all of this, you, me, everything, it's all just in my head. And he's like, okay. And he's like, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, like, isn't this all kind of dumb? Like, isn't this like superheroes and all that flying around, capes, costumes? How many times has Batman dragged the Joker off to Arkham? How many times has everyone just gone around punching each other, and then it just keeps happening again? How many times are we going to sit through that? The only way this makes sense is in the mind of some sort of drunk loser. And Superman sits there and he's thinking for a moment, and he goes, that cold place you mentioned that you saw, can you tell me more about it? And he's like, it was real. That's why it was so scary, is because it was real. There weren't any heroes, because that's not possible. There's nothing else like that. It was a world where there were no heroes because it's just too hard to be one. And Superman's like, that's pretty bleak. That's pretty messed up. And he pauses and he's like, Six Pack, are you familiar? Some ancient cultures, they have a belief that the entire world is just the dream of a god. And if the god ever wakes up, then the world would end. Like that's just it for us. So if you're dreaming this, if this is all your dream, maybe we should be grateful that you dream us as well as we are, as good of people as we are. And Six Pack's like, well, you better hope I don't sober up, I guess. And he's like, yeah, maybe so. Six Pack, I think we need to go now. So we go back to the bar and we see some of the people are wondering, like, Six Pack's been gone a while now. What's going on? Is Superman and him have been talking. And all of a sudden, this woman appears in the bar. And she's like, oh, my God, it's you. And she walks over to Dog Welder. And she's like, I got your email. The kids are out in the car. And we don't get a follow-up on that immediately. But we see Superman teleports Six Pack over to a park in Gotham. And it's all raining or whatever, but he has a flashback to, he's like, oh yeah, I used to sleep on that bench over there all the time, and one time I fought Killer Croc here and I kicked him in the nuts and everyone was cheering me on, and then he like slowly realizes, but that didn't happen. None of it was real. That's not something that was real. And Superman walks him over to the bench and he's like, hey, I wanted to show you something. You say that you don't think you're a hero, that you don't believe any of this is real, that you're just drunk and asleep in an alley somewhere. And if that's true, if you're really not a hero, how do you explain this? And he leads him over to a statue in the middle of this park of Six Pack that's engraved, says Six Pack, superhero and savior of the world. And Six Pack looks at it and he's just overjoyed. He's like, it's me, it's me. And Superhero says, yep, that's right. It's going to be okay, Six Pack. It's all going to be okay. And he hands him a bottle of liquor, and that's that. So we cut back over to the Dog Welder thing. He's outside talking to the woman and two kids. And they're like, hey, kids, it's okay. Daddy's back. He's going to be back. And he's going to take off the mask and he's going to show you. And the other people are watching from inside the bar like, oh, crap, we're about to lose Dog Welder. And the wife is crying and she's like, you're going to take off the mask now, right, honey? And we'll be done with this and we'll move on and everything's going to be behind us. We all missed you so much. And Dog Welder's like reaching up to pull up his mask. And it's like, yes, we missed you. The kids have missed you. And one of the kids goes to the car and pulls out a puppy named Scraps and says, and Scraps has missed you too. And there's a beat. And then Dog Welder turns on his welding equipment and we hear screams from the car. It's a messed up moment. So some amount of time passes. We see Six Pack returns to the bar. He's drunk off his ass. He's yelling. He's like, everyone, the threat's almost here. Section 8, time to go. Power Tool's like, what? What is it? What's the threat? What's going on? He's like, I don't know. This is all-consuming destruction. Let's go. We got to fight. And we see he knocks over Power Tool's drink and tells Power Tool, go ahead, don't just stand there and get your power tools turned on. So he turns on his set, and because he's standing in his drink, he electrocutes himself. Power Tool's dead. So then he calls out to behind the bar for Badehor, and Badehor's like, nope, and he just ducks underneath the bar. He then runs out and he's like, all right, fine, I'll get Bueno Excelente and Guts, to which I always forget his name. I think it's like Hacken or something. Tells him they're still doing their honeymoon in the ladies' room. Do not go in there. He's like, fine, whatever. Grappler, get your ass out here. And we go into the men's room, and Grappler has hung himself by his own grappling hook. And we just see him be Six Pack is just like, oh, you useless douchebag. So he runs back out. He's like, fine, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And he pulls out the bottle. He starts chugging it. And the narration over the top says, like, oh, there's a place where men and women did incredible things and they did super heroic things. And all the superheroes had the same name on their lips. Six Pack, leader, warrior, hero. And we see he goes outside. He just pukes in excess all over the ground. He smashes a bottle and is just like, stand back, evacuate the area. This is going to be a war zone. And he just goes down drunkenly yelling down the streets. And it says, this is his world, his dream, whichever. As dreams go, well, I suppose you could do worse. And we get a split page of Six Pack, the version that was asleep in the alley, but now he's covered up with Superman's cape. And then the actual, quote unquote, actual Six Pack, the hero, running through the streets saying Section 8 go. The end. How the hell did this book get a heart? How the hell did this happen? God damn it, Garth Ennis, you bastard. No, I mean, I genuinely enjoyed this issue. I think, some of the other books, it's been hit or miss with the characterization. Green Lantern and Batman and the issues at the beginning were very, very off character, very weird. But this one, they played Superman so straight, so just like you could feel that calming presence, and the way that he even is represented in the art. Like Six-Pack is made very grotesque. He's got like constant snot and puke and all this other stuff, and Superman's just there as just a calming presence, and he feels like he's genuinely on Six-Pack's side. And then to play up the idea of like, is any of this real? Is this all just a dream for Six-Pack? Not to say that like the DC universe isn't real, but like Six-Pack isn't a part of it. He's just a guy who's drunk off his ass. Like, I like that. I really like when they play with that sort of stuff. So strangely enough, the last 2 issues of this book just like were great. I'm very surprised I got sold on that, because I've never been a huge fan of a lot of Garth Ennis stuff. So no, I mean, for this issue specifically, I think I'm going to say, I kind of want to say an 8. I kind of want to say it's there, because it's got heart, and I didn't expect that to happen. I genuinely didn't. So yeah, I'm going to say an 8. The whole series, definitely not for everybody. But like, checking even just this issue out in a vacuum, sure, there's going to be some edgelord stuff with the grappler stuff and the dog welder, but like even the dog welder stuff had moments to it. So no, it's different. If every DCYOU book did something as creative as this, I think the line would have done a lot better. But yeah, 8. Batman and Robin Eternal number 9, written by Snyder, Tynion, Lansing, and Kelly, art by Roge Antonio. So this issue is pretty much entirely focused on the Tim Drake, Jason Todd part of the story. They were out looking for Mother's Signal, and where we last left off, they were in some random ass town in the middle of nowhere, and they got the name of the Angel of Death. This issue, we skip ahead. They are over top of Santa Prisca, which anybody would know as Bane's Island, and Tim is chewing out Jason for spending all their money to get some entrance codes that ended up not working, and a bunch of missiles are about to shoot him out of the air, and Jason's like, all right, time to bail, let's go. And Tim's like, no, this is my plane. I don't want them blowing up my plane. Why would you do this to me? And he says, suck it up. And it turns out Jason has an original bat cape that he uses to glide out of the falling or the exploding plane. And Tim's just like, all right, fine, you owe me a plane. So when they get down to Santa Prisca, they describe all the exposition that we're going to need here, which is apparently the technology that has come out from the Order of Saint Dumas, who have set up base here on Santa Prisca, is extremely similar to Mother's technology. And as they slash their way through the jungle, they get to where Pina Dura should be, and that is where Bane's prison is. That's the name of that. But it is replaced with this shining church citadel thing that belongs to Saint Dumas. And they're like, what the hell? Who would build a church in that place? And Tim goes through and says, yeah, the Order of St. Dumas is like definitely a weird culty church thing, but also they have made incredible strides in medical technology. So, you know, they're not all bad. And they're like, okay, but they're teaming up with Mother. So yes, they are all bad. Let's go. And as they're discussing it, saying like, all right, apparently there is a flaming sword wielding hitman in there, an angelic one. We just got to keep an eye out for him. That might be Orphan. We're probably dealing with Orphan at that case. But while they're talking, Bane just comes in and sucker punches Red Hood. And he's just like, you dare come to my island? And while this poison, these people are taking over, screw you, Red Hood. And Jason earlier on in the issue said they had been on this island before, and Bane got the upper hand on him, and so Jason was looking forward to a rematch. And we get that. We get a whole thing where he tackles him around just like, haha, you're not using your venom or a giant mech suit or anything like that. We can fight hand to hand, square and fair. And we see that as he flips, I honestly don't know how this happened. As he flips Bane over, Bane's mask comes off. And they make like no reference to it. Like it's not on anymore. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll just continue fighting. Jason throws a batarang at Bane. He ends up catching it. And then Bane comes in and just pile drives his hands through Jason's mask. Like, he is not okay. However, in all the fighting, Bane dropped a gun, and Tim picks it up, and he's just got it trained on Bane. And it's so weird to see that. And Bane's like, nah, you're with Batman. You wouldn't use a gun. He's like, oh, au contraire. I'll do what I need to do here. And Tim basically talks to Bane and says, like, look, we want answers about Mother. You want the Order of St. Dumas off your island. I don't really care if that happens, so why don't we work together here to take out whatever this threat is? And Bane's like, fair enough. So we go back over to Prague, where Grayson is trying to do some investigation. He realizes after the confrontation with Mother, all of the stuff that has to do with her in Prague is gone. All the people she paid for, everything, poof, gone, no trace of her. Harper, meanwhile, is doing some martial arts training in the background, to which she's like, well, let's go out there and find Cass. We got to go. Let's do it right now. Grayson's basically telling her that she needs to continue her training. She's not ready to go out there. And as she's trying to argue back, the little spinning wooden pole dummy thing ends up whacking her in the back of the head, and she's like, all right, shut up, I don't want to hear it. And Grayson says, look, you're talking too much. Like, I know I talk during my fights, but you got to keep it light and quippy. If you go on a monologue, you're gonna lose it. You got to stay up on your fighting first. And Harper's like, if I ever want your opinion, I don't. Shut up. And then they go into a little bit of her backstory. Grayson's like, look, your tech makes Tim jealous. He'll never admit it. And you're angrier than Jason, but like, your big thing so far is that you've been lucky and you can't rely on that. And she's like, my mom died when I was young and I was stuck with an abusive father for the entirety of my childhood. I'm sorry, you want to re-say luck again? And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Hey, here's a list of names that I need to look through on Mother's list. You want to help me out on that? And she's like, fine, whatever. So then we go to a flashback. Bruce had contacted Mother and said that he wanted a wife in order to put a tracker on her. We see that Bruce is like, yep, we put the tracker on. We immediately broke into her network. We got all the information on Scarecrow's plans. And now I just had to meet up with her and like put the final arrest on. No problem whatsoever. But the moment he walks in as Bruce Wayne, Mother's like, hey, Batman. And he's like, what? I was just looking for a wife. I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, oh, no, look, I found your tracker. I absolutely know what your entire thing is, Bruce Wayne. We were feeding you fake data about Scarecrow stuff, and then we were just looking to see who followed it. And when you know, Robin showed up in one of the things. So yeah, clearly you're Batman. This was the easiest possible thing to put together. And we see Orphan is attacking Bruce this whole time, as Mother basically dresses him down, being like, you're not special. Like, you healed wrong. You went through a traumatic event, and then you ended up the way you are now. Same thing that you did with Dick Grayson, or at least you're trying to do. You're trying to make sure he's good to go. My whole thing is guiding children through the worst moments of their lives and getting them to be the best possible citizens they can be for the world to come. And she's like, I know you don't want a wife. All you ever needed was a mother, and I'm here for that. I am ready to provide, but what you really are asking for is you want someone to be a better Robin. And Bruce just grabs the weapons he's being held at, punches him out, throws down a smoke grenade, and runs out. And Orphan's like, should I go get him? And she's like, nah, he knows what I said is true. Let him wallow in that for a while. So we go back to Santa Prisca. Bane is showing them some tunnels to get in underneath Pina Dura. And I know Scott Snyder wrote this bit because he goes on this whole thing about a Roman myth of the Saint Prisca, who was from old Rome. It does not matter to the story. So as they're going in under the tunnels, all of a sudden they realize, wow, this tunnel is extremely cold. What's that about? Also, there are wine caskets, but it's too cold for wine. Turns out they're full of some sort of chemicals, but they can't figure out what it is because they're totally inert in the cold. As they go in deeper to a vault, they see that there's some high-tech stuff, some drones and whatever floating around that even Tim's tech can't spot. So it's like, okay, this is more advanced than me. I can't actually do this here. And finally, they get up to a chapel area where Bane's own henchmen are kneeling before the, like, cross or whatever, and they're drinking that fluid that came from the wine cask. So it's like, oh, okay, this is like bioterrorism. They're doing something where they're drinking this crazy stuff. And then one of the henchmen starts to talk, and Bane's like, no, hold on a minute. That guy was born mute. Are they actually doing miracles here? Is that what's happening? But then all of a sudden an alarm goes off. And a voice starts speaking, saying like, oh, brothers and sisters, escape from this place. And they're like, show yourself, orphan. And he's like, oh, I already have shown myself. And he says like, Bane, I was with you when your mother died. Jason, I was with you when you died. I literally was on the other side with you. And Jason's like, okay, he knows us. And Tim's like, nah, that's all public information. He's like, he knows I died, Tim. It's like, okay, mostly public information. And finally, appearing from the shadows, he says, the last to die, his angel of death, Azrael, shows up with his flaming sword, the Order of Saint Dumas. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know Azrael's history, go read Night Quest, Nightfall, all that stuff. I like that they worked in Bane for Azrael's New 52 origin. Like, obviously, this isn't an origin. This isn't how he, like, came to be or whatever, but his beginning here, his time beginning in the New 52, the fact that Bane was around for it, it kind of just makes it, okay, we're doing something similar but different. So the same kind of thing that we had before, but we're doing it differently. So kudos on that. I actually really appreciate it. Beyond that, I feel like it doesn't really flow from the last issue, but as an issue as a whole, I like it. So 7.5, I think, would be fair. I don't think it's really standout amazing, but it's good. It definitely is a solid issue. Cut down on the Roman mythology, Scott, but beyond that, yeah, I like it. And that's it. That is all the comics that were put out by DC Comics this December 2nd, 2015. And it definitely feels like a transitionary month. I mean, if we look at it on the grand scheme of things, this is month 47 that we're coming into here. So counting ahead, we have 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. Now, that's 6 months before we hit the end of this show, and therefore the end of the New 52. And for anybody who reads trades, 6 issues to a trade is pretty much the standard. So makes sense that a lot of things are changing of the guard right now. Everyone's putting out their one more trade, and we are also getting a bunch of new number ones over the course of the month as well. So we'll definitely check in on each of those as they come out. But what's coming out next week? Well, next week ends up being one of the biggest weeks we're going to have left in the rest of the show. It's only 15 comics, but one of them is a one-shot. So going through the list, we have Batman, Batman/Superman, Catwoman, Constantine the Hellblazer, Detective Comics, Earth 2 Society, Gotham Academy, Grayson, Green Arrow, New Suicide Squad, Red Hood and Arsenal, Starfire, Telos. We have the one-shot that I mentioned, which is Darkseid War Lex Luthor, and we have Batman and Robin Eternal number 10. So all that is going on. The only thing I really want to draw attention to is because of the Robin War stuff going on, Gotham Academy was put in a very strange situation where they had an issue come out this week, issue number 12, and then just by virtue of how the schedule's lined up for the Robin War event, they also have one coming out next week, issue number 13, which directly ties into Robin War, as does, I believe, Red Hood and Arsenal and Grayson as well. I think those are the only ones. Detective Comics, I don't think does. It might, though, so don't hold me to it. But regardless, definitely check out those. There's a lot of Robins and Red Hoods and Graysons popping up all over the DC universe, so shake a stick, you'll probably hit one of them. Beyond that, not a whole lot more to mention, so I'll just go ahead and move on into, hey, do you have anything you would like to add? Anything you'd like to share about any of the comics I covered this week, last week, any we could all go ahead and add those in the comment section down beneath the YouTube video if that's how you're watching. But if you're listening, we also have a subreddit, a Patreon, a Discord. We have numerous ways that you can talk to us. Discord is probably the easiest way to do so, but if you do it through Patreon, you can do it, and I'll get to ignore you because you spent money. instead of the alternative, which would make much more sense. I'll be honest, I don't have access to the back end of Patreon, so if you say anything to me on Patreon, I am relying upon the guy who runs the Patreon to deign it necessary to tell me whatever's going on. All that suffice to say, just leave a comment beneath the video. What do you do? Engagement means everything. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however you consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week and every week thereafter, because this is your life now and it's ending 1 minute at a time. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.